just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar. And I say every week special, but this week's special because it's 2023, baby. So we're on the downhill to footy being back. We've all had a break. We've all enjoyed family time. The great Gurino. I'll get to you, but first I have some great news. Bloke Beer is on special in every celebrations in Queensland. If they don't have it, they've either sold out or just need to order some in. But we're available to every celebrations in Queensland, and Bloke Beer is on special. I'd say around a $5 to $6 discount. Head into your celebration in Queensland, grab a case of Bloke Beer. Plenty of messages over the break of people really enjoying the beer. It's a perfect beer for summer, guys, because it's a session beer. Really easy drinking. Watch the footy, watch cricket, watch whatever. It's not a fruity or hoppy beer. So head into your local celebrations. Plus, we're in hundreds of other stores. A lot of people message, oh, where can I get Bloke? Or is it near here? We've got a store locator on our website. So you just go to your website, store locator. You just put in your suburb. It'll come up with a map literally showing you this is 5Ks away, 3Ks away. At the moment, we're all in independent stores, Aussie-owned independent stores. So get into your local, support your local, grab a case of Bloke in a Bar, grab a six-pack. We're also in New South Wales. We're in every celebrations, IJ Plus Liquor, Portals Liquor, and Bottle-O as well. So get in, grab a case of Bloke Beer, guys. It's absolutely beautiful, and it supports the platform. But the great Gurino, I've got you here, mate. How was the break?
It's great, mate. Had a good time. Tried to fill the void with a bit of cricket, NFL. It's just not the same, is it?
Just not the same. It's like you had a good relationship with the ex, which is footy, and you didn't appreciate it when it's there. Then she left you because, Guru, we both know you don't deserve her, and now you miss her.
I'll be crawling back, no doubt about it.
Timmy, you missing your ex or what?
Yeah, missing the ex big time, mate. It's a funny one. I've worked in sort of sport and footy in particular for going on almost 10 years now, and footy season can be so full on and so hectic that you get to the off season and the break's quite good. It's much needed. But in 2022 we had the World Cup, and from the second the whistle blew in the end of the World Cup final, I've just been fanging for the NRL pre-season trials to start. I don't know what it's been this year, what's been different, but I just can't wait for it to get back on deck for us.
Oh, man. You know what I think a lot of it has to do with is like the content around it has gotten so much more enjoyable to consume. So like it's no longer just, the weekend, the footy is here. You watch the footy, and then as people listen to this podcast, then you spend 5 days talking about footy, whereas back in the day, you might tune into a show on a Thursday night or whatever, but you weren't as engaged as you are now. Whereas you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, you've got the podcast. Yeah, I'm excited, bro. I honestly cannot wait for All-Star Game.
As soon as that whistle blew in the World Cup final, I went, fuck, I need a break. I got 2 days into it and went, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm bored.
Bored out of my mind. Honestly, anyway, I'm getting excited thinking about it. What about you, Matty? What did you do? Any scissoring over the holidays or what?
Plenty of scissoring. I went down to Victoria for a week and then just kind of chilled.
Plenty, you reckon?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Scissored his way down the east coast.
Holy shit.
But I actually found myself watching a Rabbitohs versus Sharks 2005 game on Fox Sports. So I'm also clearly missing my ex of rugby league because that was when the cricket was on as well. I was like, I need something. And yeah, you're right. We're on the downhill now, but we're still a month away. So I'm still not like too excited, but
yeah.
The early days of the Bunnies.
The dark days.
They'd been in the comp for about 5 years at that point.
Yeah, I think they were basically, they were like
the origins of the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
This is like their opening 5 years of their existence.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't go too bad for being in the comp for, 4 or 5 years at the time. Like, I got towed up every week, but it's hard to start.
That happens to new clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't all be the Roosters.
Can't all be the Roosters, mate, with tradition, history, heritage. You can't all be that.
Seriously, I've been here for 2 minutes and I've copped an absolute drive-by from all of you. 3 cars in a row.
Hey, you walk straight into that talking about the Rabbitohs this, that. Fuck the Rabbitohs, bro. Nah, all jokes aside, yeah, incredible break. Really enjoyed it with the family. But I am back for footy. I'm so keen to talk about footy. We've got some huge news. Look, it was a great break until probably Sunday or Saturday for me. I'm just sitting back, enjoying my whole fucking break, going, how good's life? Broncos premierships next couple of years, of course. Young, good team, all the drama behind us. And then, boom, nuke drops into my phone. So on Cobbo's comments about Kevy Walters that were said on a podcast, I think it was October last year. Now, some people might say, it's just the media dragging it up. Maybe that's true. It doesn't change the fact that it was said. It was said on a public forum. It was said about a coach. Obviously, I've got plenty to say about this, but as a former Bronco, but yes, I'm a former Bronco, but I see myself more as a fan of the Broncos now. It's been so many years. It sucks. It really sucks to see your next superstar, unfortunately, say those things publicly. Not that he has that opinion. I'll get into it further. Now he's come out and said it was just a silly joke. Look, I respect someone and having to, there's certain things you have to do at work to appease certain people and all that kind of stuff, and I understand it. But like, if you watch the clip, it doesn't seem to me like it was a joke, in my opinion. And maybe it was a joke and he just delivered it incorrectly. But I've watched the clip and I think that there's a bit where there's smoke, there's fire. Now I don't know whether the fire is still going, but there's no denying there was fire at the end of last year. But I'll give my deeper thoughts on it first. Gurino, can't even say it properly anymore. I'm that rattled, Guru, what's going on?
Yeah.
Guru, what do you reckon, mate?
It's tough to watch, mate. Obviously, Selwyn came out and said it was taken out of context. The clips I watched, it's a tough argument.
Look, as I said, I feel disrespectful by saying different to what he's saying.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you watch that clip, I didn't take it as a joke or out of context.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy's young. There's a heap of excuses, but you've just got to be fucking better. You got to be smarter than that. Whether you're a footballer, whatever you are, you don't go onto a public forum and bash your boss like that. It just makes no sense whatsoever. I'm a little bit worried about your Broncos now, just quietly.
Yeah, just loudly. I am too, very loudly. Timmy, I'll get your thoughts first, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, you can't go public in any industry in the world and just bash your boss like that. And it's the timing of it is, for obvious reasons, so poor. We're just about to go into the start of the trial games of 2023, and it happened in October last year. Had it come out then, when they had this, what seemed to be off-field dramas because they capitulated at the back end of the year, it would have been like, it just would have added to it then, and it would have been like, all right, done, out of the way by Christmas, New Year, we go into 23, fresh start. It was recorded obviously last year, but it's fresh now. Yeah. And for that, how they're starting their 2023, the Broncos, Selwyn, he's had a bit of a Barry Crocker in this one, and the Bronx, there's something going on there, and like as someone who's happy to see Brisbane not do that well as a proud New South Welshman, even I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to feel sorry for the Broncos and a few of these things happening, because you don't want them starting the year like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially Selwyn is a superstar in the making. Like, he's not there yet because he hasn't achieved it, but like his trajectory is on that route. I will say there are some, worrying signs in regards to, I guess, him being so young at the moment and handling that superstar. But yeah, look, obviously, as a former Bronco, the interesting thing about these is that, like, in every workplace, whether it's footy, whether it's, you're a tradie or you work in an office, people talk about and have their opinions on their boss. And they talk about whether they're good or whether they're bad. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong if Selwyn is playing for Kevy and he just doesn't feel that he is a good coach, even though I would say he's too young to make that call. Even if you felt that way, there's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to have an opinion on people that work with you. The concern I have is, first of all, you're right, Guru. Yes, he's young, but like, come on. That is, you cannot say that publicly. People say they're comfortable on a podcast, rah. You still know there's a microphone in front of you. You still know this is going out in public. So there's that. And look, if that was in isolation, let's say he said something else that was different to, the coach, I don't think he's a good coach or whatever, I would be like, look, one stuff up, he just said it, he's young. The real concern for me is why is he comfortable enough to say that? How many conversations are happening internally between young players or older players or whoever it is, where two people now are so comfortable in saying that the coach, I would be, as a young guy coming through, scared shitless to say anything like that out loud to anyone outside of my close, your closer teammates. And so my real concern of the Broncos right now is that one guy could just be a disgruntled player. Two guys now coming out and publicly saying that, yes, it was around the same time, and maybe they have patched things up since then, but it's a sign of, this is something that, in my opinion, senior players can stop. If you've got a senior playing group, the amount of times that I would walk into training and there'd be Corey Parker and your Lockyer and your Hodjo and all these people, and like, we may have been unfairly treated or whatever. Like, we may have been unfairly treated, and I'm sooking and the younger guys are sooking and we start, sooking to each other. The amount of times, like, the boys, whereas Corey, Hodjo, Lockie or whatever, would be like, oi, shut up. Doesn't matter how you feel about it. That's the decision that's been made. And that's the direction we're going. And you knew as a young guy that they agreed with you, but you also knew is that it doesn't matter. The decision has been made. This is what we are doing, and we follow it, and we work it out later. And I think that the concern at the Broncos at the moment is that there's no, and I've said this for years now, so I know a lot of Broncos fans will be, I guess, overhearing it, but the older group of players have the power to rein this in. Put it this way, there's no way, in my opinion, if there was older senior players that were very strong senior playing group, if they heard wind of the younger guys talking like that, even if they agreed with younger guys, they'd be like, guys, do not talk like that, because that isn't helping anyone. He's our coach. He's signed for the next couple of years. So that's my biggest concern, is how comfortable they are in saying that at a club that,
And just add another layer to it, like how comfortable he is. That was in October. How has he slept every night knowing that's out there? Oh. It's a matter of fucking time until someone finds that.
Yeah.
I find it unbelievable that it's been sitting there for so long, and he's sweet.
Like, not asked to take it down. Maybe he did ask to take it down, but again, it's really, really concerning. Like, this is, I'm really concerned for the Broncos at the moment. I can see, because you can come out all you want and say, oh, we're all good now, we're this, that, the next thing. Like, are we really? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to point out, it's kind of interesting that the whole Tyson Gamble podcast thing happened probably a month before that as well. So Selwyn would have seen all that unfold, and then a month later, he's on a podcast saying pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, well, the guy in the podcast, when he asked Selwyn, I'm pretty sure he brings up the Tyson situation. And so it's real concerns, because you might say, oh, look, it's all sorted, right? Reece Walsh incident on the weekend. There's another incident with one of the players who was allegedly involved in, something pretty poor. Again, I don't want to talk about it because we don't know the case and what's happening, and the police are taking care of it. Then you've obviously got some more personal issues with some of their biggest players. Don't want to go into that because it has, But put it this way, there is a lot of turbulence at the Broncos right now.
And I also think that, as much as, you're talking about the coach like that, this is also one of the Broncos' greatest players of all time.
Yeah.
Like, there would be guys that, have probably, the people would say are better players than Kevin Maltz, but I think he's featured in every single premiership except for 2006.
Oh, yeah. 5 premierships?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I will say, he still shouldn't have said it for sure, but I will say in Cobbo's defence, at the very least, he did acknowledge, like, he's a great player of the past, rah. But you're right, though, like, regardless, even if you do say that, then don't say the next bit. So anyway, the quote was, he's a good person, like a good bloke, but I don't think he's a good coach. He's not the best coach, but he's all right. And for people thinking, oh, it's just a quote, you hear it differently when you watch it, go and watch it. It doesn't...
I think it sounds worse from him than when you read it.
Yeah, it's not... It's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. Timmy, what do you reckon? Do you think that there's a concern... because you might say, okay, well, Penrith Panthers don't have an older senior playing group to a degree. Like, maybe you could consider Fisher Harris and Isaiah Yeo a bit older. Do you think the concern stems into the fact that this senior playing group aren't nipping this in the butt?
It's funny. It was the exact point I was going to bring up off the back of what you've just said about the playing group. And you look at it and you go, are they lacking the senior playing group? So they've got Adam Reynolds, who's obviously sort of such a proud leader of this club, who's been there for one season. Outside of Adam Reynolds, you've got Paddy Carrigan, who's another leader, but he's also 25 years old, very new to the role of being, as a part of this leadership group. Outside of that, you've got Corey Oates, who's been there a while, a bit longer, but he's a winger. No one listens to wingers anyway, so it's irrelevant.
True.
Outside of that, though, like, it is a young squad. It is a young leadership group. While this might only be one concern for them in a broader spectrum of issues at the Broncos, are they lacking that senior playing group that you speak about so often? Because to me, it looks like they are.
Oh, for sure. Like, you think if Adam Reynolds, didn't speak to Selwyn before that interview, you think Adam Reynolds wouldn't have been like, bro, regardless if you think that, don't say anything publicly. Of course, that's the advice Adam Reynolds would give. And also, the advice Adam Reynolds would give was like, it doesn't matter, he's our coach. We need to go in the same direction. I've told this story ad nauseum, but just for people that are, I guess, newer to the podcast. 2008, we're playing really well. Then we had a couple of bad games. Wayne Bennett calls us all into the team meeting and basically says, boys, if you don't feel that this is the year that we can win the comp, let me know and we can plan Mad Monday. We can plan our away trip. He said, I don't care what we do as long as we do it together. And that is an example of, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with someone, you all have to be on the same page because you're in it together. At the end of the day, there's no other coach. He signed there. He's not getting the sack before the season starts. We assume. Really, really concerning. Anything else on the situation? And look, again, this is more me being disappointed at the state of the Broncos rather than Cobbo, in the sense that, yes, I'm disappointed that Cobbo said it, for sure. But young people make mistakes. And it's like, Cobbo is quite a young player. It's not like he went out and did something, horrible that we'd all say, I condemn him. He said his opinion on the wrong space. He's quite young, not that well media trained yet. And so it's more about a reflection of like what's happening internally for people to be saying that
in
publicly.
In the grand scheme of issues in NRL, this is the smallest blip on the radar. Yeah. It's like it'll blow over. It's not that dramatic. But in terms of this, what is seemingly becoming a bit more of a sort of toxic culture leaking at Red Hill, it's a sign of that, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Cobbo himself, as I said, it'll blow over. It's all good.
Yeah.
But what the hell's going on at the Broncos?
Oh, mate.
Did you guys hear the other comments that he said in the podcast about
how he walked out?
Yeah.
Again, young man, 18, 19 years old. They're getting beaten, and he wants to go home early. Look, it's not good. How many of us have snuck out of work things when we were younger, or didn't turn up to certain things we should have, and all that kind of stuff? So again, that in isolation is just like, yep, slap on the wrist, give him a fine, move on. But when you add it to everything else, you start going, holy heckers, like what is happening up there?
Especially when, so an incredibly talented footballer, very young, like, he's already played 3 Origins. I mean, we were sitting here at the start of last year going, will he be in the team? Will he not? Is he ready? Like, Kevin Walters backed him in at the start of the year, gave him every opportunity he possibly could. I don't know. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's being talked about a lot. And you, as a young player, you're just absorbing everything. You're so new to it. The bright lights, you don't know what's going on. You're absorbing it, and it wasn't nipped in the butt quick enough for it to stop permeating. Because we know there are other players in that squad that feel the same, that feel that Kevy, well, I don't know if we still do, but like if 2 have come out, and there's been kind of whispers about certain other players, feeling like they don't think that Kevy is the best coach. I just think that I hate to be the guy that's like, back in my day, because it was different. It was on social media, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, as a young fella, I was never sitting there having an opinion on like what the coach thinks about anything.
I don't think there will ever be a day where that'll be fair play to come out and rag your coach like that.
So many young players, like where is this confidence like you put your head down, and Selwyn, his confidence, what makes him so great. But I don't know. I just kind of always felt like I'm not a senior player. I have no right to say any of that stuff. I put my head down and do my job, and we get on with it. And that's easy for me to say. I came through in the best years. So, when you're winning, none of this stuff happens. When you're losing, obviously this stuff happens. But I don't know.
The Broncos were winning, though. I know Cobbo's was after the capitulation. But
you're right. So, look, a stuff up by Selwyn, not the end of the world, but it could be the end of the world for the Broncos in the sense when you're talking about a season getting off to a rocky start. We'll talk quickly about the Reece Walsh thing. Again, in isolation, not an issue. I mean, not an issue. Like, you shouldn't handle yourself like that. Any man, whether you're a professional or not a professional, you don't handle yourself like that. You control your emotions and you sort it out rationally. And we're all being guilty of losing our head. But anyway, the problem with Walsh thing is like, bro, after the stuff that you've had happen off field, you've got a responsibility to your club, Like, you cannot afford to put yourselves in situations where this happens, because even though it's a nothing thing, it would only be a nothing thing if you didn't have those the pre-existing dramas that you've had. Then it would, if you didn't have that, it would be a nothing thing. We wouldn't be talking about it. But this is just adds on to what the club doesn't need right now. So again, isolation, it's a nothing thing. But he just needs to be a little bit smarter, Reece Walsh, in my opinion.
Yeah, they all build up, and then when you get the Selwyn thing on top, it's a domino effect of everything that's happened in the past.
Yeah, craziness, crazy, and like step into Fafita, bro. I don't know about. I mean, I love the fight and the dog. I love it. But this might be one that you just want to hard pass. Thoughts on the Reece Walsh thing, Timmy?
Yeah, another thing, as I said, it all just builds up. And Reece Walsh has a long career ahead of him, and lots of experienced players with longevity in the NRL, they manage to avoid even the smallest of incidents. And I look at someone like Adam Reynolds, that the leader in the group, his whole career, it's been seemingly flawless off the field. And as I said, it's not a big incident, but he's going to have to learn to get himself out of these situations as quick as he can, because you don't want them building up on a personal level either.
And also, you begin to become a target then.
Yep.
Because you're out. People know he's got a little snap in him. He's got all this in him. And before you know it, everyone's egging you on because they want to. The phone comes out. They want to be the one that goes viral. Oh, Reece Walsh tried to fight my mate or whatever. Or I knocked out Reece Walsh. You know what I mean? Like, you already have to deal with that anyway as a footy player, of blokes wanting to test themselves against you. Add on to the fact you're starting to become a bit of a rogue. It's just like...
Add on to the fact you're as good looking as he is.
Yeah, which is like... You walk into a club, you already want to get punched by every bloke there because he's like, I just lost my missus. Maybe Fafita said that his eyelashes weren't as good as they were, and that's what Reece Walsh
Your looks are overrated.
Yeah, you're overrated, overrated looks, bruh, and that's what set him off, which I can understand actually.
Fair play.
I take everything back, Reece. You're in the right. How dare you question his good lookingness? So look, the Brizzy Broncos. If anyone to sit here and say there isn't concerns up there at the moment, I think that's craziness. I really do. I'm very concerned about what's going on up there. Tessie New just left to the Dolphins. It has not been a quiet off season for the Brizzy Broncos at all.
If they don't do well this year, where does that leave Kev?
I think that it's a matter of the target is on his back now, because two players have said it publicly, then it becomes, he can't. There'll be a section of people that go, he can't coach. I would hope that they could. The thing is you can always make certain things work, and let's say he's not the best communicator or whatever, you can always bring in assistant coaches to fill that hole, and Kevy can be the motivator and the guy that knows what the club culture is all about. And that's the thing that I really thought, and I felt like he did last year. He really brought back that culture of old, of just high elite level winners. And then obviously we fell off at the back end, but anyway, so yeah, very, very concerning. It'll blow over Cobbo. In Cobbo's career, this will be, you won't even think about it in 5 to 6 years' time. He's got an incredible career in front of him. He is very, very young. Even this guy's from a small community. It's when the bright lights hit you and you're from a place where you're just not used to that. You're used to where you're just talking like people. So even though it's never on, he still is really young, and we all make mistakes when we're young. So he'll learn from it.
On the bright side with him, I saw some photos of him training the other day. Looks like he's starting to pick out a little bit.
Holy heckers, he is. As long as he, applies himself and trains and just applies himself physically, he'll just be whatever he wants to be. Whatever he wants to be in this game, he can be that. I did find it interesting, even in the podcast, he said A, he wanted to play fullback. B, he'd be training at fullback for the off season, and this was after Reece Walsh had signed. And he actually even said, I think Reece will play in the halves. And I was like, what? No, surely not. But this is before the preseason, so maybe he's just he may be just a young man that just talks, and he's not thinking about the weight of what he's saying.
Which is what I find it unbelievable that after that he didn't get home and go, fuck.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I've had them on my podcast. Guys have said something. I've gone, oh fuck, that'll be interesting. And I text them later and go, hey, are you sure? And they go, I actually better not.
Yeah.
Better pull back from that.
Yeah, that's something like, anyone that has a podcast or wants to start a podcast, there's absolutely nothing wrong with asking a question and getting an answer. And if that's what your mode of thinking, for sure, like there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a podcaster like me, where you're more about, you want the player to be comfortable, where they can say whatever they want, but they also have the right to go, you know what, like probably not the right time to talk about contracts because I'm about to come up to contract talk or whatever it is. You almost sometimes have to, because they're giving you the benefit of dropping their guard, you've got to give them the benefit of going, well, because it's not a professional environment, they may say things that A, they don't mean, B, it's too red hot right now or whatever. So I guess as a podcaster, sometimes you just got to ask yourself what you'd rather be. Do you want to be, when you come on the podcast, whatever you say goes up? Or do you want to be, no, this is more about hearing about your journey, your career, and I don't want you to feel like once you've said something, you can never take it back or whatever. But yeah, so disappointing, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Hopefully they can turn it around. Benny Eichen was down at training the other day, so it looks like I'm hoping the Benny Eichen Walters situation has chilled out. The Broncos are in such an interesting spot because it's like going into this year, if you had have asked before 5-6 rounds of last year, you would have said these guys are going to be, they could be the next Penrith. That's where they're tracking to with this young squad. Now going into, after seeing all the drama, I'd assume a lot of people are saying they'll probably miss the 8 with the right now. If you
I was about to say to you, we spoke about them as a top 6, potentially top 4 team only 6 weeks ago. I don't have them in my 8 at the moment.
Right now, like with all the drama and that, and again, it's a long off season, but very concerning, very concerning. Now to the cricket. Just go over the cricket quickly for the cricket watchers. Also, if you like this shirt, these are our Bloke jerseys. Head to bloke.shop. Grab a Bloke jersey. We've got this one. We've got a white one. We've got plenty of other stuff on bloke.shop. We've got hats. We've got shirts. Everything. That's on bloke.shop. Head over there. We've got party shirts. We've got thongs. We've got board shorts. We've got singlets. Everything. That is at bloke.shop. Head over there. Grab yourself one. Grab yourself some kit. It's really, really high quality kit. I wear it all the time, so I love it. But yeah, the cricket, Australia, absolutely killing it at the moment. Now, some would say they still haven't played the big dogs. It's interesting. So was it the T20 where they struggled? They got knocked out in the World Cup quickly a few months ago?
Yep.
And there was quite a big call for, like Justin Langer has been, he got shafted, and if he was still the coach, the boys would be killing it. And there was almost like, see these boys, they got ahead of themselves and rah-rah. Then they turn around in Test cricket, and I think that chat has quietened down a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, they've still got to play the big dogs, but for the time we've seen them play, they've been pretty bloody good. Timmy?
Yeah, mate, it was an absolute demolition of a summer, and yes, the opposition was pretty ordinary, to be fair, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. Now, the West Indies have struggled for a few years now, but South Africa, look, they're going through a bit of a transitional phase in cricket. They've had so many legends, Dale Steyn, Morne Morkel, AB de Villiers retire in recent years, and they're building, and it's quite a young side. But we still thrashed them. Would have been 3-0 had it not been for wet weather in Sydney.
What are they? Sorry to interrupt you. As a non-cricket fan, I feel like you try your hardest not to play cricket. Like, why aren't you trying as hard as possible? Like the venue that you're selecting. Like, I don't. And this may. I'm sorry, cricket listeners. I know this sounds fucking stupid as. I know it sounds stupid, guys. I'm not a big I try as hard as I can to watch cricket, and I'm getting better at learning about it. But when I see pulling out light meters and shit. Bruh, turn the fucking lights on. What the fuck? And I get it, someone may have an advantage or whatever. It is what it is. It rained in the first half for us, and it was fucking dry weather for you in the second half in footy. I don't understand it. Speak to me, Timmy. Make me understand.
Campy, there's a lot of weird things that cricketers do, and you've just listed a couple very quickly off cuff, and you're spot on with all of them. And I think probably my short answer to it is that cricket is such an old school traditional sport run by old blokes. A lot of it run out of the English cricket and Indian cricket and these sorts of things. It's so traditional. So making changes that make sense and moving with the times, it's just not a part of their thinking. They're still thinking about 1870 and the history of it and all that.
Bro,
so,
they put a fucking sheet over that had a hole in it.
yeah.
Think about that. It had a hole in it. We're talking, this is tens of millions of dollars. It had a hole in it. Timmy, how does that happen?
So, someone made the point to me the other day. They're like, when there's so much money invested in these cricket tests, all that, they're like, can we just invest a bit more money in putting roofs on the stadiums to ensure that we get 5 days of cricket every single test?
It's insanity.
That was one of actually the great man Shane Warne's. For years, he was saying, why is the Sydney Test played at New Year's every single year? Because it just keeps getting washed out. They're like, move it to a time when there's less rain in Sydney.
Craziness.
Mate, there's a lot of questionable decisions cricketers make.
Like, wouldn't you go back and look at the last 10 to 15 years and go, okay, where does it rain in certain areas and plan around that? Because you're going to get your Sydney Test. Just, Maddie, speak to me.
There's been, I think there's been 25 washouts in Sydney, like days, in the last however many years, and every other city's been in single figures, and we've had the second most games.
Perth's had 0.
Perth's had 0. The worst, the reason I laugh so hard at when you said they don't want to play cricket is because I'm trying to get my girlfriend into cricket, and she's saying the same thing. She can't understand. Like, the worst part was on day 4 when we hadn't played all of day 3, not a single ball was bowled. The rain stops at 12:15, and then they say, "Sweet, the rain stopped. Let's have lunch at 12:30, and then we'll inspect the pitch at 12:45." We hadn't played for a day and a half. It's just crazy. And then I know there's a reason, but then yesterday there's like 5 overs to go. We haven't played the whole test. 5 overs to go, and then they're just like, "Oh no, we can't get 8 wickets. Let's just end the game now."
But then on top of that, it was this, like, for the first time in the test, this beautiful summer evening in Sydney. The conditions were amazing for cricket. And again, there's a million reasons behind it. But they're like, nah, you've got till 6:30 whatever it was to finish this test. Don't extend it by an hour and a half or something while the light is still there because we've missed 3 days of cricket. It's like, nah, that's your time, you're done.
Yeah,
It's just,
we could have played for so.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
but it's like, I understand there would be reasons behind the decisions they make. You don't just make it like, I'm sure someone's like, oh, the light and, this percentage of the ball, they get more runs, or fuck, whatever it is. But there's also a million fucking reasons to not do that shit as well. Like bringing out a light reader that apparently didn't work properly. Like, what the fuck are we, turn the lights on, bruh. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It's bizarre to me. Because I feel like if you made those decisions, and these aren't even like I'm sure someone will say they are game changing because the pitch is fucking or whatever. But like, if you want to step into the next generation of content, you can't afford to be off for a day and a half. The next generation is just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna go on. What?
And that's where I'm probably in between him and you as far as cricket knowledge. But surely with T20 at the moment, Test cricket can't afford to not be fucking playing. They literally can't afford to do it.
Because like you like, for example, as a non-fan, if I have those 3 days where I'm like, you know what, going to take the boys or whatever, and I'm like not a big cricket fan, there's no way I'm wasting 3 days of my holiday where it could be rained out for 2 of them when I could be anywhere else doing anything else because I'm not guaranteed to get cricket. Like it's bizarre to me. And as I said, I understand I don't know shit about cricket, but
Everyone shares those sentiments. Everyone's been blown up last week saying everyone understands you can't play in the rain. That's fine, but that should be it. You can't have bad light at 2 p.m. That doesn't make sense.
it's like turn the lights on. Turn the lights on. Play in stadiums that have roofs on it. It's bizarre, honestly. I just don't understand it.
The other crazy thing was that when people were at the SCG, it was raining the other day. As they're leaving, depending on which direction you go, you have to walk over the Roosters training ground. And as people were leaving, that's when Connor Watson got injured.
Oh, no.
So there was a fucking crowd of people there watching it from what I heard.
Oh, man. Fucking hell. I mean, at least I got to see fucking someone training. Jesus. And don't worry, Roosters fans, we'll get to Connor Watson. What a devastating. Oh, my God. I feel so bad for him. But, yeah, anyway, the cricket, David Warner's 200 on boxing. Talk about just whipping your big hog out and going. You know all that chit-chat? You know all you people talking shit? There's a reason why my name's David Warner and I'm one of the best batsmen ever. And, again, I'm sorry if I'm fucking out of line here, but he's one of the best batsmen ever. Yeah. And it was after, because he had all that drama with Cricket Australia, and then he came out and played, like a busted after that, to my understanding. And he was getting pizzled. People were calling for retirement. And then he just says, nah, fuck that shit. Boom. 200 on Boxing Day. Thoughts on that, Timmy?
Yeah, it was one of the great knocks. And he said, David Warner's career's been riddled with off-field dramas. A lot of them being quite minor. And there's just always something around him. And champions always stand up, don't they? And that a Boxing Day double ton is like as good as you can get. It was such a special moment for Davey Warner to watch that. And then just going straight into Australian folklore where he's cramping up and he has to be carried off the field.
Right.
You just sit there going, this is so iconic. Mate, it was so good to see Davey Warner create the double ton. Player of the series with 213 runs where he got 200 in one innings. Questionable, but nonetheless...
That's a very nice way of saying it's outrageous.
A very nice way of saying horrendous decision, but... Anyway.
It is what it is. Look, sometimes things happen. That never happens in rugby league.
Where does he sit as far as like Hayden, Langer for you guys?
For me, it's Hayden and Warner.
I'll ask you this then. If Warner had the love of bowling right now, in the sense of no off-field distractions, none of that, just straight down the line, do you think he'd be rated higher, or do you think he's appreciated as much as he should be appreciated?
I think he's got more haters than I've ever seen anyone have in cricket, and I think you're right. Because he hasn't scored runs except for that 200 for a while, that doesn't help, and everyone's got recency bias. But if I'm picking my Australian 11 of since I've been watching, my two openers are definitely Matt Hayden and David Warner, no doubt in my mind.
Do you think?
I'm probably more in camp. I'd stick with Hayden and Langer. I love Davey Warner for what he's done, and he's right up there in our best. But my only knock on him as a bit of a diehard cricket fan is gets a lot of his runs in Australia. Going internationally, his record is nowhere near as good. So I don't think he's probably done it across the world. If we're talking we're picking our Australian best 11 of all time and our openers, that's where I'd probably go towards Langer and Hayden. And Cricket Enough out there will probably come out and give me stats, make me look stupid. But I'm pretty sure his record is a lot worse than those two going around different continents.
So his average in Australia is 58 and away is 32. So huge difference.
Wow. Look, I'm going to go with Warner.
You didn't pick Alan Langer.
Langer? Thought he was a halfback. Look, I don't know nothing about it. What about poor Uzi? Getting to 195. The chances of us running them down, again, guys, I know I don't know shit, but a chance of us running them down are pretty fucking slim, and you don't let him just fucking bang out 5 with the best? I don't know about that. I know team has to come first, and at that time you didn't know whether we're going to run him out. But let him bang out 5, surely. In saying that, you fucking call cricket off if there's someone spits on the field. So maybe they were just look, we need every second we can get. Thoughts on the Cummins calling it? Declaring,
I would have done the same, mate.
Yeah.
It was brutal on face value, but he's out there to win a test.
But we'd already won it, hadn't we?
Yeah, we'd won this. And I had this argument with one of my good mates. We went to day 4 of it when they declared. We wanted to get there and see Uzi get his double ton.
Yeah.
But how it works is, friend, I'm not too familiar with cricket, is they go on and just by doing it, having to get the runs, declare, come off, it just takes another... It's not a lot. It loses about 3 or 5 overs or something, Matty might know, but they lose that. They lose the time it takes for him to get the other 5 runs and that, and all of a sudden... That test match yesterday could easily have come down to the last 3 to 5 overs that we lost. It didn't in the end, but that could have been the difference. And Paddy Cummins would have been crucified if he would let him get that, and then we fell 5 overs short.
Yeah, okay.
I would have done the same thing as well. And the way I justified it as well is if Warner was on 195 and then Cummins let him go out and get his 200, he would have been called the most selfish bloke in Australia. It's just because it's Aussie and everyone wants it. Everyone wanted him to get it. And I would have loved him to get it, but... Team first, you got to go for that win.
No, I understand the decision, but I just think Uzi, at the time you're like, oh, look, I get it. But then when you don't, when we just draw, you're like, oh man, she just fucking left him out. They get 300.
Don't get me wrong, I was Devo when
It looks ridiculous in hindsight. Give the man his double.
Yeah. But at the time, you don't know that you can't chase him.
I was Devo when we declared, but
Yeah.
I understood.
It is what it is. Thoughts on, is it Hazelwood?
Yeah.
He came in for Boland, correct?
Well, so Stark got injured. So we have 3 legit pacemen in Green. So Green got injured, Stark got injured. They replaced those 2 with a batsman and a spinning all-rounder. So Hazelwood kind of came in for Stark, and then Boland pretty much just got dropped for, I guess it was for Agar or Wrench or whatever.
But what I'm not understanding with that, like some people said, they're just trying to prepare for
India
and that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but Boland has barely played any Test cricket. Wouldn't you want to get as much into him as possible?
Especially when Boland is like, okay, India's India, but like Boland's going to be on the plane to play the Ashes.
Yeah.
And the way that Hazelwood and Cummins bowled on day 4, like they were killing it. Boland would have been so helpful for us on day 4 and maybe day 5. I don't know if we would have won. Agar, he didn't really do anything. I think it was definitely a poor decision.
It was such a weird selection. It was like, as you said, Campy, they were obviously looking at, we've got 4 tests against India in February, which is going to be epic, which goes into, I think starts in June, the Ashes, 5 tests against England. The 2 big tests, obviously, can't wait for it. And they were looking at the spinning decks in India, how many are going to take over, giving Ashton Agar an opportunity. And again, big fan of Ashton Agar, but in the T20 format, he's very economical. He darts him in. He's a bit too quick for a spinner. I think, Guru, you spin a ball more than Ashton Agar does.
One of the best straight breakers of all time.
I didn't even know what that means.
Yeah, he's not a test format bowler for me, so I wasn't overly stoked with that decision, but you could see the thinking in looking forward to it.
But the thing is, I don't see the thinking because it's like Boland is played 4 tests?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So he's a rookie too. I know he's a bit older. So it's like, I don't get it. Like you're basically, like he needs as much runs as he can get because he's proven he can impact matches.
And so I suppose the other thing is Sydney is traditionally known as the spinning wicket, one of the biggest spinning wickets in Australia, which it sort of probably hasn't been in recent years. That's
a myth at the moment.
Becoming a bit of a myth. And yeah, so they were going off that.
But is it Agar?
Agar, yeah.
Is he going to impact us? Is he going to make impact against India and England?
So
we know Boland's fucking going to do it.
Honestly, off that test, I'd be a little surprised if he probably even goes over to India now. I think that was his opportunity and he didn't take it. In terms of that isolated test match, we were up 2-0 in the series. We could go for the Welsh, but didn't mean a lot. They're probably also looking at the big picture, and there's the World Test Championships, which with the draw, we're all but locked into the final of that one. But if we lost it, there would have been a bit of a concern. So outside of just the immediate image of the context of the series, it was important to win it for the World Test Championship rankings as well. And
so isn't that more reason to bring Boland in then?
I would have thought so, yes, but they were probably thinking Sydney, maybe the deck will spin a little bit more. He wanted the second spinner. I don't know, mate.
To answer your question, though, about Boland and Agar, I think Boland, as much as we all love him, I don't think he'll play in India because we've got... You bowl your spinners in India more than your pacemen. So I don't know if he'll even get a game in India, Boland, but he will definitely play in England.
Well, just 100%. The way I see it is like, and this is just a casual, like no idea what I'm talking about, but like we know Boland can be a crucial part of your bowling team. I know that sounds ridiculous or whatever you call it.
Legit, yeah.
So why not give him as much experience as possible so that when his time comes, he's fucking ready and raring to go?
Why are you resting someone who's played 4 games in their career?
Yeah. I'd understand if Boland was like to his 50th test or whatever, because then you would be like, okay, we know he can do the job, but Boland is still really early in his career. I didn't understand. Anyway, that's just outside looking in, guys. Apologies if it's the fucking worst take ever.
No,
Let's
it's
get
not.
Back to rugby.
It's really not. It's a fair point.
Let's get back to rugby league. Big fucking Johnny Bateman joins the fucking Tigers. Announced the news on Boxing Day. It's a 4-year deal. 4-year deal starting in 2023, essentially effective immediately. This is all brought to you by Bloke Beer, guys. Currently on special and celebrations in Queensland. If they don't have it, they're either sold out or they can order it in. So head into your celebrations in Queensland. Plus, we're in every celebrations in New South Wales and every Bottle-O. Plus, hundreds and hundreds of other stores in New South Wales, Queensland, ACT, Victoria. We've got a store locator. Check it out. Grab a case of Bloke beer. We've got Bloke Midi as well, which people are absolutely loving, especially in Queensland. But big Johnny Bateman to the Tigers. 4-year deal. Gurino. Thoughts on this signing?
Yeah, what under the Tigers? I've got no fucking idea how they've done what they've done in the last year. I've got no idea how they've convinced so many quality players to go there, but credit to them. What an effort. I love the Bateman signing. I think that if we go back to that 2019 grand final, he was crucial for them throughout the entire season. And the thing I remember about that grand final is at the end of it, the Roosters were all out there enjoying themselves, celebrating, and all the Raiders boys went into the sheds. Johnny Bateman stood outside and watched the celebrations just so he could remember the pain of it all.
Maybe he was waiting to get on the beers with the boys.
Potentially. Wouldn't shock me. But he genuinely is a guy that could turn culture there.
100%.
So, and I think
look what he did to the Raiders.
100%. And I think that's what the Tigers need. Tell you what, if the next 18 months doesn't turn the Tigers around as a franchise, though.
Oh, fuck end it. Just end it.
If Benji comes in as coach and Robbie's there and Bateman, Clemmer, all these guys are there and nothing changes.
If nothing changes in the next 24 months for the Tigers, that whole club needs to be cleaned out and put in completely new people, because they have done, and that's me giving them a compliment for how incredibly they've recruited. So that is me saying the admin, the office, everyone involved, the people that they have got to this club, where they were at as a club, is absolutely fucking incredible. And they deserve everyone puts shit on the Tigers and rah-rah. What they have achieved this year in recruitment is arguably one of the best recruitment pushes in recent memory. Because
considering where they were.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not the players. I'm saying the negative energy around the Tigers over the last few years has been palpable. And they didn't even win the spoon until last year. And yet they managed to have the biggest recruitment drives of 2022 into 2023. Timmy, what do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, very exciting for Tigers there. And I think the biggest thing with their recruitment drive, firstly, there's not an average age of 38 of players they've brought in. They've gone with more experienced players, and they've gone for players that can hopefully bring the culture in Papali'i, Napi Coruscant, John Bateman, David Clemmer. Bateman will be outstanding for the football team, and he'll offer a lot on field, but it's all that stuff you spoke about. It's that winning culture. It's that heart, the ticker that he'll bring, where it's like they no doubt have the roster now to play finals footy. The talent is there, but that means nothing if you're not playing for the bloke next to you and having that just burning desire to win games of footy, and that is what John Bateman does. In that alone, whether he kills it as a footballer or has an off year, whatever, it's not irrelevant, but he'll bring so much off the field to this side in terms of their culture, and just, boys, we're here to win, we're here to make finals, ninth won't do.
And we need to fight. He's a fighter.
Exactly.
He just wants to stink, and they need that so badly.
When they're down and out battling to get up in a game, Bateman will go and flog someone, or as you said, he'll start a bit of a stink to get them everyone fired up and switched on again. It's such a good signing.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Raiders fans sitting there going, he left the Raiders, now he's always coming back. So this is my understanding of the events that happened in regards to the Raiders. Bateman wanted to re-sign with the Raiders, long-term deal. The Raiders said, unfortunately, we don't have the money, which is totally understandable. Then it was almost like, well, should I go talk to other clubs? It was like, again, this is my understanding that, talk to other clubs, because Bateman was in a weird spot where his kid was still over in England, and if he signs a long-term deal in Australia, he can bring the kid over, whereas a short-term deal, bringing your whole family over for a 2-year deal or whatever, it could be quite risky. Again, this may be half the truth, it may be none of the truth, it may be the whole truth. This is just my understanding of it. So he did have offers from other NRL clubs, but he decided to go back to England. And so the length of this deal is really interesting, because you would assume that now, because it is a 4-year deal, he's eventually got what he wanted, and he'll be able to bring his family out to Australia. But I do understand people's concern of he has been released from essentially his last 3 contracts. So he got released from Wigan to go to Raiders, released from Raiders to go to Wigan, back to Wigan, and then released from Wigan to go to the Tigers. On top of that, I would say, apparently I didn't watch the game, so I can't make the judgment call, but I've been told he didn't go that well at Wigan this year or the last year and a half or however long it's been. I will say he was outstanding in the World Cup. I don't think there is a concern as to whether he can play solid footy, at the very minimum solid footy. But I do think that the Tigers surely have put in some pretty stringent clauses of breaking contract. Do you understand people's concern in regards to the breaking of a contract?
I do, and that, to be honest with you, that was my initial reaction.
Yeah.
When I saw 4 years, I thought, not a hope in hell. There's no way he's going to be there in, 2026? But, yeah, you would have to think that the Tigers have played this smart. I would hope so.
Surely.
Anyway.
Surely part of the deal is like,
How old is it? What is he, 29, 30?
29.
29, yeah. So I also think a lot of people, when they see 4 years, they talk about him like he's older than what he is too. Like, he's not that old, 29. And yeah, as you said, Timmy, just the impact he had on that Raiders side. When you have a look at who the Tigers have put together, like the impact that Bateman had on that Raiders side, the impact that Appy had on that Panthers side, this is it, or fucking call it.
Papali'i on the Eels as well. Yeah, it's they've got the squad now. But, Timmy, as you said, that all means absolutely zero. If they get on that field, they got no direction, no mongrel, no working together. They can have mongrel individually. It's going to mean nothing. But if they have mongrel working towards what they need to work towards. So, in regard, look, I think I tend to believe the idea that the 4-year deal is so that he can bring his family out. If in 2 years he does leave again, I would be really disappointed, regardless of whatever the reason was, unless the club initiated it. If the club initiates it, then that's they do it all the time. So fair enough. But yeah, I would be really disappointed, and I think a lot of fans, that would leave a bit of a bitter taste if he was to break another contract after he ended up getting, the deal that he wanted to get. I think he'll see it out. I think he'll see it out.
Hopefully. And I think the thing that stood out for me there, as you said, they can get out, they can have this great forward pack, but if they don't have any direction, like for me, that was their problem last year. When Hastings wasn't at 7 or even at 13, he gave them direction. When he wasn't there, that was their problem, and I'm not sure if they've solved that realistically.
It's like, it feels like year after year, but it all depends on Luke Brooks.
Well, hopefully Appy can have a big say on it. Hopefully Appy can be a switch breaker there.
Appy, he was he was at the Penrith Panthers, but he still did have Nathan Cleary to steer the ship,
But the Nathan Cleary he had when he started, very different to the Nathan Cleary he has now. So hopefully he can have a similar influence on Brooksy. I'm nervous about it. Yeah. But I'm hopeful. You just want the Tigers to be successful, don't you? Like, fuck.
Oh, man.
It's just been too long.
And it's good for rugby league. They're in, half of their club is in the heartland of rugby league. Any thoughts on, I know you already spoken about it a little bit, but in regards to the Tigers and their push towards finals footy, is it finals or bust this year for them, or you give them 24 months, 12 months?
They've got a lot of new faces on the roster. So I think, you'd want a good year from this squad, but I don't think it's finals or bust. And, new coach as well. So I think it's like they just need to put a good year of footy together and show that they're building towards the future. And I think 2024 would be like, this squad should be making finals football. As far as the on-field side of things go, myself and Guru spoke about it off air a little bit, but talking about what side he'd play, because at the Raiders he was a right edge back row, same as Isaiah Papali'i. I suspect he'll come on as a left edge, just because when you look at centres and back rowers who have preferences to one side, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them will be often the fend that they prefer and that they're strong on, but the other one is just that hard unders line that they run, and it can be hard to switch sides with that. Isaiah Papali'i, we know, runs a really good unders line on that right edge. John Bateman isn't what you'd probably call a line-running back rower. He catches, he grabs, he creates things out of nothing, he offloads. So I think he probably plays left edge there, which defensively for Luke Brooks is excellent, because John Bateman doesn't miss many tackles. Yeah. And he works so hard on his inside for his halfback. I've seen that for the 2 years at the Raiders, time and time again, how good a bloke he's for that. Elliot Whitehead's in a similar mould. So he'll do wonders for Lukey Brooks in defence there, and creates an exciting left edge combination. I said, it's not locked in that he'll play left, but that's the way I see it panning out.
I think the thing that stood out for me there that you said, like, new faces, new coach. It's going to be the same situation next year, a new coach again. Obviously, Tim Sheen's only there for the year, so it's a very good squad, but it's a lot to balance. You're going from Tim Sheen's, who's probably the most experienced coach of all time, to Benji in his first year of coaching.
Yeah, I know. It's
And, like, I'm so respectfully, name another club that would happen at.
Yeah. And like, even though the Benji is like all in and all that kind of stuff, when it all happened, it kind of seemed like it wasn't like Benji was angling, you know what I mean? Like preparing for it, like he was coaching some of the 20 side and he was fully into it. Like he seemed to be more into the media stuff. Then he's got into coaching. Now he may come out and absolutely kill it. I mean, look what Billy Slater did in his first ever Origin. He broke your hearts. Anyway, back to the rugby league. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, so Benji Marshall first year, Robbie Farah. So is it definitely Benji as the head coach, or is it Robbie Farah?
I think it's
Join, isn't it?
Join, whatever. Same situation.
Joint head coach.
Does that not make it even harder?
That's a bit weird. Joint head coach. You can't have joint head coaches, can you? No, surely not. Anyway, can you afford?
There's one place you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, what's eight captains at one stage?
Yeah.
Can you afford, now that you've got Bateman on an edge, to rotate Papali'i in the middle?
I don't think so, and I don't think they need him in the middle. I think they keep him out on an edge. They've got enough solid middle forwards between Joe, Clemmer, a few of the young guys we saw last year.
Sean
Stefano's still
Bloor
there.
just bides his time or plays as a
That's
middle.
what I mean, because like the way I see it is like we're relying on Stefano Udakamano. We're relying on him bouncing back because he had a quiet year. We're relying on a lot of young guys to become better players. Whereas if you had a starting pack of Clemmer, Papali'i, Bateman on one edge, Bloor on the other edge, and I know Bloor is still a rookie, but he's extremely highly touted, is a possibility now to get Papali'i in the middle, go through all that work.
Maybe, I don't know. I hate when you see clubs sign star players and, in my opinion, play them out of position.
Yeah.
And then you go, they don't need to play him in the middle, particularly to do the work. Twal, Offengowie, David Clemmer. They've got these big poppers. Bateman, Papa, they just sit on their edges and wait for their opportunities. They don't need to be making it. Like, they've got the workers in there.
Yep.
To do the hard yards.
Yeah. No, I agree. Just a question. Do you put him in the middle? But yeah, I can understand. I would keep him on the edge.
Well, Sean Bloor would be livid, the poor bugger, signing those two back rows. But, you know, he'll get his opportunities and he'll get his time.
Look, there'll be other clubs. Like, once he comes back and plays, if he can't get a start, there'll be other clubs very interested in a young gun like that.
Who do we see being their 13? Do they just play a middle forward there again, or
Probably Joe Offengowie. That's the one of the areas where I'm like, that connecting piece. I just think, because like I don't think he started the year last year there and he was more just put there, and he played some of his best footy. And so I think with a full preseason under his belt of like, you are a 13 now, he may, the ball playing may improve, all that kind of stuff. So I think you just go
the
Joe.
ball playing needs to improve?
Yeah, it can't be Alex Twal. I think he's a front row through and through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you go Joe.
Quick side note, Johnny Bateman. John Reginald Bateman.
Reginald. What a name. That is so English. John Reginald Bateman. The great John. I mean, he's great for rugby league when he comes back. He's a character. And look, I understand people's concerns in regards to the, seeing out contracts and that for sure. I hope he sees it out. I think he will. And I think he'll be great for the Tigers.
I had Kempy while I was working at the Telegraph. Johnny Bateman was coming over, and I'd managed to lock in the first interview with him in Australia. I called him up, and it was this call record app to get all your quotes down and whatnot, and promised the editors, got this big yarn, first exclusive on English International, Johnny Bateman coming over. I finished the interview. I did not understand a word he said. I went back to the editors. This is about 3 hours before the paper was getting printed. Yeah. I'm like, I've got nothing. I'm like, I've listened back to it and I can't make sense of any quote.
What'd you end up running with?
What I did was I got onto Geordie Rapana and I gave him a call and got some quotes on him around the English players at the club and Bateman coming in. Yeah. And I think I made sense of like 2 basic lines that Bateman gave me. I've still got the recording. It's just mumbling the whole time.
Bro, you know what you should have done? Should have called Elliot Whitehead, said, can you translate this for me, please?
Yeah. I reckon Elliot Whitehead would have been 101 to get away. Like, it was so bad. I'm just going like... And then I had all this list of like... questions to ask, and when you're interviewing someone, we all know it's important that you listen and you bounce off what they say and follow-ups. I just had to go straight down to the next question because I couldn't hear a word he was saying.
And like when they get comfortable and on a roll, that's when they like lax into a real heavy accent, and you're like, and I'm sure we're similar to other countries as well, but the big Johnette, big fucking Johnette. Nah, so good to have him back in rugby league.
Benji Marshall is the coach, not Robbie Farah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so no double head coach guys, just the Benji Marshall.
So what's Robbie doing then? Is he...
So I'm just reading the media release. So basically it's Tim Sheen's next 2 years and then Marshall will take over. And for Robbie Farah, it just says he signed on as assistant for the next 2 years. So I don't really know what he's doing.
So Tim Sheen's is 2 years.
Tim Sheen's the next 2 years, yeah.
So, I mean, then again, like I know he's a bit older now, but we just have to take his coaching record. You'd have to say top 8 by next year, 2024. Anything less than that would be...
So Tim Sheens is the head coach in 2024 still?
Yeah,
Or is he just
2023,
at the club?
2024, Tim Sheens will be head coach. And then in 2025 to 2027, Benji will be the head coach.
Okay. All right.
So I think it's a positive that he's there for longer than a year.
Definitely makes more sense. Yep.
And if he plays, if he coaches the way we know he can, then he definitely has the ability to coach that side into the 8.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe Tim Sheens' coaching record for the last sort of 10-ish years has been very good at all.
Hasn't been as good as his early years.
How big a concern is that? Is it a case of like, all right, he's been out of the NRL, maybe he thrives in the NRL environment, the style of play, do we think he'll bring it back? But it has to be a sort of an area of concern, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I think, a lot of people have raised that concern of like, is he an NRL coach anymore? And that's no disrespect to his incredible career, but it's been quite a while since we've seen him coach in the NRL. We just don't know.
Yeah, his Super League coaching last couple of years hasn't been fantastic. 2020 was the COVID year. He went all right, but the years before that with Hull, there was only like a 41% winning percentage.
The game's changed a lot.
Oh, massively. I will say the positive with a guy like Sheens is he changed the game with guys like Benji, Scotty Prince, small mobile forward pack, hitting the ground, getting up, playing the ball quickly. I remember when I was coming through during that period, we were frustrated as NRL players going, like, they're literally diving to the ground and just getting straight back up. Like, how can we... And that's... People always say, oh, Storm introduced wrestle. And, maybe they were the first to wrestle, but that was a reaction to players and clubs diving to the ground and bouncing back up. And so it wasn't just brought in willy-nilly, like, oh, right. It was because we had no way... Not we, but... Well, yeah, we had no way to hold these guys down. Because it was like touch footy, and that's what Tim Sheens brought into the game. So, like, if he can, I guess, with the game being faster, if he can employ some other revolutionary tactic, then, who knows? He could
no
be,
wonder Benji was untouchable in 05 when they employed that tactic that had never been seen before, and they would have been getting the quickest play of the balls of all time.
Yep.
And Benji skipping off the back of that.
Oh, man. And Scotty Prince.
Yeah.
Just to defend Tim Sheens, I mean, when he arrived at the West Tigers, he'd come from a 2-year spell. He'd been at the Cowboys for 4 years. His win percentage was 26%. So he has, he has been in this sort of situation before. He's come back from not his greatest footy, and obviously, as much as the game has changed a lot, the game had changed a fuckload then too. From the when he was winning comps with the Raiders in the 80s, early 90s, and then to come back in 2003, 2004 around that mark, the game had changed a lot then too. So
well, look how much Wayne's changed with the game. Like he's adapted over years. So it's absolutely possible. But it's worth a question.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm not confident on it, but he has done it before.
Yeah, bounce back from a not best record.
Isn't it great to see, like, you've got Tim Sheens, you've got Wayne Bennett both coaching this year. I think it was Random Stats Guy put up the other day. There isn't a player that is currently playing that was born when they started their coaching careers.
It's fucking so wild, bro. Like, literally, yeah, that's so wild. So wild.
Like, he started coaching in 1984. Tim Sheens.
The fact that Wayne is still around challenging in grand finals is actually outrageous. Like, when you really think about the fact that this bloke is in his 36th year or whatever of coaching, and he can take a whole new generation under a totally new set of rules all the way to a grand final and be essentially, 4-6 points away from a win is like outrageous. It's It's incredible. And that's the one thing I feel like Wayne really does. If you want to call him the GOAT, is what he has over a lot of other coaches is that he has gone to other clubs and brought them all the way to a grand final. Obviously, he went to the Dragons, they minor prems and they won it. Went to the Newcastle Knights. I know that ended in disaster and the Tinkler situation, but it's the best the Knights have looked in, 20 years or whatever? Like they got to a prelim, I'm pretty sure. Goes back to the Broncos, gets them to a grand final. Then he goes to the Rabbitohs, gets them to a grand final. Like, that is amazing. That is amazing. And I think that, like, that's, even though I would say Craig Bellamy is the greatest ever player developer, that's through a test with guys like Trent Robinson and Craig Bellamy. Could they go to another club and have that same success? I think they could, for sure. But, again, we haven't seen it yet. So, yeah, it's amazing. So, yeah, Tim Sheens, he may bounce back and be sweet, but it's definitely worth questioning. Now, devastating news. So I can't believe we didn't talk about it, but yeah, Tom Trbojevic does his hamstring again at training. There's so many things about this that, like, it could be really bad or not as bad as we think, in the sense that, like, even like Seabold getting to the club and him essentially immediately doing his hammy. It's like, were there training methods input that, like that, was he pushed too hard too soon, or was it Tom Trbojevic because he's such a hard trainer? Was it Seabold's lack of relationship with Tom, knowing that he would push himself too hard? And again, that's not saying he still did his hammy under Des Hasler, so it's not to say, but he had a year and a half? How long did he had? Nearly 2 years no hammy, because he did his shoulder. That's what fucked him last year.
At least a year, yeah.
So at least a year, and again, this is not to suggest that Seabold is at fault at all, but what I'm saying is like, your star player, the one thing, it's the worst thing that could go wrong, goes wrong in the first week or two.
It was more than a year and a half, because it was the running down the Corso thing.
Yeah.
So that was before.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
of course. He was in the shower, mate. Come on, man.
Sorry, Tommy.
Was that his last hamstring injury, though?
Yeah, because this year was the shoulder.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was his last hammy.
And so, like, I feel sorry for Seabold, because he is already up against it, like massively up against it. And then it'd be one thing if Tommy went down with, like, did his shoulder again or some other whatever, but like his hammy, that injury that has been so meticulously cared for. So I feel sorry for Seabold. And I, like, surely a guy that can get through a year and a half of footy with no hamstring injury, surely there is a sweet spot there for him to not, do you know what I mean? Like, surely he should be so monitored that they don't put him to a point where he's doing his hammy. Anyway, he does his hammy. He's going to the USA. Look, there is the same guy who did Latrell Mitchell. Now, a lot of people, like, they're connecting that and be like, oh, yeah, no, he'll be sweet, rah. This is a very different situation. This was one off with Latrell, and he was put in an incredibly bad position when Latrell did it. Whereas, obviously, Tommy's done it quite a few times. Mate, Tom Trbojevic, honestly, one of the greatest years we've had, one of the greatest blokes we've ever fucking had in the game. But I'm getting really worried for the bloke. About a year ago, about a year and a half ago, remember when he did initially, and I don't know whether it was with you, but I basically said, like, I would consider playing him in the centres, because that high speed changing of direction, I'm not sure how he did it at training, but there was like 2 or 3 times that he'd done it. The amount of load that you get through as a fullback is almost double that of a centre. And the reason why I said at centre, I said, I just want him to get through a year or two of footy to get his body, just through it and acclimatised to playing week in, week out footy. I think you have to really consider it now, which is crazy, because he's one of the best fullbacks we've ever seen, literally. Now, not career-wise, but when he plays well. Guru, what do you reckon, mate?
I just remember about 5 or 6 weeks ago, me and Matty were sitting in here doing some content. And we were talking about players. If you could bring back any player for their entire career injury-free, who would it be? And I remember, Matty, the last thing we said on that podcast was, fuck, if we're sitting here in 10 years' time saying Tom Turbo, I'm going to be devastated.
Yeah.
But it is sort of getting to that point, isn't it?
It really is. And, like, as I said, like, I hate to say it, because I love Tom Trbojevic as a player and as a bloke, but it's really, really, really concerning. This isn't hyperbolic at all. Some people say, oh, come on, mate. Like, it's like, mate, it's been, 5-6 years now? And even the year where he killed it, didn't he start the year injured?
Yeah, he came in round 5.
Yeah.
Timmy, what do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, mate, it's an interesting call, the centre shift, and obviously it wouldn't be a ideally a long term sort of solution. It'd just be temporary, and I don't mind it at all. Do you bring him back at centre till round 22, and if you can get him through all that in lighter workload, strengthen that hammy, try and sneak Manly into the finals, then 3 weeks out from finals, you make the shift to fullback. There's a ready-made replacement in Ruben Garrick, who has been wonderful there when he's been out. Rubes easily slots back into the back line, Tommy back to fullback, and you go from there. It's getting to that point.
You have to consider it, surely.
And you still get your strike weapon, Tommy Turbo, as a fullback in finals.
Look what he did in Origin.
But the point is getting him there.
Yeah. And so, look, again, this is not me saying, move him to centre, they have to move him to centre. I'm just saying, we need to think outside the box here. Because, to my understanding, a lot of hamstring injuries are usually from fatigue, are usually from, or they happen in fatigue, you might be 50th minute, you've done all, 6Ks or whatever, and you go to sprint. And look, go to NRL Physio, he knows way more about it, but he's the best in the business with this kind of stuff. But yeah, with Tom Trbojevic, it's not panic stations, but the reality is this. Manly have just re-signed a guy on $1 million a year, essentially, that we are unsure of how his career is going to play out going forward. And I don't know how they fix this, because unless the new regime has come in and said, this is what we're doing now, guys, and everyone has to jump on board. I'm not saying that did happen, but unless that happened, you could go, okay, that's where the mistake was, that they didn't treat Tom's hammy with the correct amount of care. But if they weren't doing that and they were giving it enough care and making sure that he wasn't hitting certain Ks and all the stuff that they were doing before, then it's how do you avoid this? How do you avoid this as a, I know you could go to guys like maybe James Tedesco and say he had 3 knee recos or 2.
3 or 4, yeah.
3 or 4, yeah. 3 knee reconstructions. So how many times has Tommy done his hammy?
When you have a look over the last few years, 2018 he played 22 games, 19 he played 12, 2020 he played 7, 2021 he played 15 and might have been the best 15 games of all fucking time.
Yeah.
And then 2022 he played 7 games. So he hasn't played over 15 games in a season in the last 4 years.
Fuck.
Okay, so he's torn his hamstrings 6 times in the past 3 or 4 years.
Oh.
Wow.
It'll be one of the greatest shames of rugby league if we don't see this bloke end his career as one of the greatest outside backs we've ever seen.
I don't mind the idea of playing him at centre until you get to finals, because he's shown us time and time again. You can pick him in Origin out of fucking nowhere, he'll be the best player on the field. You can bring him back from injury and straight away he's the best player on the field. I understand the argument of play him at fullback for 3 or 4 games to get some reps into him. I don't know if you want to take the risk.
Do you really that?
We just spoke then. We were like, the trial's not far away. Will we see Turbo? And we both went, you can't afford to do it. No way. Name another player that you would go, no, can't do trials.
Yeah.
I reckon Manly need to be realistic about it and just put him on ice this season and just get him back for the Blues for Origin. 3 games, that's all we ask of you.
And then New South Wales under the table pay his contract through Manly and just have him ready for Origin every year. He comes out and fucking towers us up. And the thing I do feel really sorry is that last year was a shoulder injury. So that can happen to anyone. But it's that on top of all the other stuff that you go, fuck. And that last year is just an unlucky that those things happen. They all are unlucky those things happen. So what does this say for Manly as a club?
Mate, part of me wants to say at least a bit of credit to Manly for going, this is above our fucking head. We've got to do something different. And, without being inside those walls, I think it's fair to say that what's been happening there over the last few years, it hasn't been working. Granted, last year was a shoulder, that's fine, but this has been going on for years. And when you're investing this much money into one player, which if I was Manly, I would, he is that good, I think it is time for them to do something completely different. And if this is the answer, if this works it out, credit to him.
Tinny?
Yeah. The only reason last year wasn't a hammy was because the shoulder beat it to it.
Yeah, you could make
had he not done the shoulder, what are the chances he did his hammy instead? And that list of hammy injuries was extended.
Yeah.
Great decision to send him to the US. Try something different. again, speaking out term, but I assume the technology and the people they have access to over there is probably above what we have here. So hopefully they can work a bit of magic on him and get him back on track.
I don't know why he left. I'll have to find that. But the guy that has managed Tommy's hamstring last 2 years and kept it fit has left Manly. So I think he's gone to the Doggies. I'm not sure what. There wasn't like a.
He has gone to Canterbury.
Yeah. So
And that's the thing. Like, I am not saying that, like, you know, the coaching staff are the cause of this at all. But when you see stuff like that, you at least have to ask the question, like, what would he'd gone a year and a half with no hammy tears, and then all of a sudden he does. Like, was it because of that? Again, doesn't mean it is, but surely in the review, when they review the whole situation, surely Manly as a club is going to go, why did this happen again? Do we have a player that just is going to do his hammy, or can we, you know, put things around him to stop that from happening? Because I remember, was it when he did it last time, that all the money they were spending on, like, full time, basically a hammy doctor, like. So that's the point you got to get to, because the concern for the Manly Seagulls is that this guy's locked up till what, 2027 or something, and so he's a key part of your salary cap.
Like, you're better off sacrificing 3 players' salaries to get the right guy to look after his hamstring.
Like,
you're fucked without him. If you were Seabold, would you rather lose Tom Trbojevic or 4 players from your starting 13?
Yeah, I mean, literally 4, like at least 3.
3 without it.
Yeah.
I take 3 every day of the week.
Yeah.
So he's contracted till 2026. So that's another 4 seasons.
And we're not saying that Seabold hasn't got someone in there to do that, and the Manly do it. We don't know the information. You're basically looking at the way, how would we handle the situation? You know, he would literally have a full-time physio with him at all times.
If he didn't have 2021, let's say he was injured for 2021, he didn't have that unbelievable year, would the conversation be different about Turbo? Would people be sitting there going, is it worth keeping him for this long if he isn't going to play?
I think so, but that year would, you know, proved, you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
I think that year just shows forever that he's worth the punt.
Yeah. Yeah. So Manly are in a real tough position at the moment, because if he goes a whole season and he gets injured again, he's still got, 3 years left on $1 million a year? It's tough, man. It's tough. And it's tough for Tom, because he's working his art. Like, you speak to anyone that's ever trained with Tom Trbojevic, they'll say he is the hardest, most diligent trainer you've ever. Like, he could not do more training wise to make himself in the best nick possible. As I said, it would be one of rugby league's great tragedies if we don't see this guy reach his incredible potential. I truly, genuinely hurt for the bloke. Like, genuinely hurt, because he's such a good part of the game. I hope that we look back on this and go, what an incredible journey. Just the way we look back on the Tedesco situation. The fact that bloke has gone from 3 Ricos to where he is now is arguably one of the greatest stories in rugby league.
What gives me hope is that it's happened to a lot of players and a lot of NRL greats. Granted, probably not as far into their career as Tommy, and probably not as frequently, but you look back at the names of players who had lots of injuries early in their career, and there's James Tedesco, Benji Marshall, Sonny Bill Williams, Minicello, all the same questions around them, because they would just be like, how's the longevity of them? How are they going to survive in this game? And they have. So hopefully Tommy's that we're having the same conversation in a couple of years' time.
That's why I think the centre position, just get him in the centres. Don't make him do all the running, and just build a career on that at the moment. Like, because he's so fucking good. You know he's going to do something incredible.
Is there anywhere else you'd play him other than centre? Like, could you chuck him at 6, or would you rather him?
I'm chucking him at centre, because I'm pretty sure they run the least Ks of any outside back.
You still get a lot of great things out of him. You get an exceptional defensive centre. You get his leaping ability for crossfield kicks, where he'll score a bomb of tries for crossfield kicks. I think centre's probably the go.
Imagine being Manly's left winger if Tommy's their left centre.
You could even put him in centre, and then when you get inside the attacking 20, you say jump out the back row, Ruben goes in centre, and so he can just ball play. It's more just about getting the Ks out of his legs. I just want to get the Ks out of his legs, that's just my experience as an athlete. I'm not like, there may be a million reasons why you do a hammy, but the times when I've seen it happen or whatever, it's been under fatigue. You, as I said, go to @NRL Physio on Instagram. The best in the business when it comes to injury. He can give you a way more detailed breakdown. And he's got a podcast, The Magic Sponge.
Can we think of an example where that's happened before, where a guy's been so injury prone that you change positions? Like, there's not one coming to me for league. Is there world sport? Is there any like?
Well, I know players have gotten bigger and like moved into the forwards and that kind of stuff. We've had that,
But he's not moving because he's got bigger.
No. That's what I'm saying.
So that's
and
such a unique situation.
It's a unique situation as well because like hammies, like if they keep going, they massive increased likelihood to keep happening. And it's the same with the ACL, but I think ACL isn't as...
I mean, could you argue that Matt Moylan's moved from 1 to 6 for that reason?
Probably. There's no way Moylan...
Yeah.
And look how
That's worked
good
out
he
well.
played.
Yeah.
You know what? That gives me hope because Matty Moylan had done his hammy 1,000 times.
Well, I think Matt Moylan 2 years ago was worse than what Turbo is right now, injury-wise, for me.
Yeah, Matty Moylan is... Like, he can barely stretch out.
Yeah.
Because his hammies are so... So that gives me... The only problem is that a lot of Tommy's game is around his explosiveness. Whatever gods exist, I pray to you that Tom Trbojevic, the footy gods, please don't be so cruel. Don't be so cruel. You can take the 2015 grand final away from me. Don't you dare take Tommy away from me. Don't you dare. Okay, now, worst news of the whole break. Rabbitohs lock up Cook, Latrell and Walker. Literally ruined my break. No. Look, I personally, I could not see Latrell and Cody Walker leaving the club. I just think that you can tell there is a bond to that club they have together and to the club. I did think that Cook, they wouldn't be able to afford Cook. I thought that they would lose. I thought the fact that they had to re-sign Walker and Trell, that they wouldn't be able to afford Cook's contract. But I think we'll find that Latrell's probably only on, not unders, but I think he's on less than what he could have got at another club. For example, the contract that he signed to go to the Rabbitohs was massively unders. Matter of fact, maybe even allegedly, reportedly, half of what he could have got somewhere else. So Latrell, doesn't get spoken about enough. When you talk about a player that is willing to take less money to be loyal, like stay at a club, that he loves, Latrell has proven that he will do that. And some will say, he left the Roosters or whatever. First of all, that was because he wanted to play fullback. And also, he didn't say he wanted to leave. He just said he wanted to test the market. And then the Roosters essentially made the call of like, all right, well, that's the offer. Whereas he's been at the Rabbitohs now and been on unders for, 3 years? 3 years. So I can see how they managed to keep Cook because I think Latrell and Walker would have taken X $100,000 less all up, be able to give that to Cook. I think this is an incredible re-signing. What do you think, boys?
Yeah, I love it. I personally think Latrell, I think he'll probably retire at South Sydney. I don't see him leaving. Yeah. I think Cody Walker staying in 2025. Are we assuming that will be the end of his career?
I'd say so, but he just has this like magic about him where you think
got a bit of like Cliffy Lyons to him.
Yeah, could this bloke play till he's 40?
Yeah. Yeah, I think those two are fantastic. I was worried that Cook could leave. I think the other thing is Latrell and Walker, they didn't have guys to replace them. They have got Mamazelis there, so I thought there was a chance Cook might go, but stoked to see him stay. And, obviously they haven't signed anyone for this year, but where's the hole in their side? What do they need to sign realistically?
Like, again, the only place we look at is that centre position, and they have that massive winger, apologies, I forgot his name.
Thompson.
Could help fill that outside back void.
Yeah, and even that spot, like it's a hole to fill, but it's not a. Oh no, it's not a major issue.
It's not you can't win the comp. Hole
for sure. So I think South Sydney. This is, what's this? Another 2 years where I think you have to put them in premiership contention with this spine.
Demetrio, well, he's still got another year to do it, but like retained everyone. Made a push to the prelim. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'll be honest. When he took over, I was not sure that he could get the job done. And that's just from vibe. That's from history of like whoever takes over from Wayne. It's an absolute fucking disaster. Now, I do think that the Rabbitohs, if you ever wanted to look at like how to handle an exit with Wayne, it's allow him to exit on his terms and prepare you for the future. Look how well they've handed over the reins. Rabbitohs deserve a massive rap, and Demetrio has, mid-year when he hooked Ilias, I thought that was a terrible call. I was absolutely 100% wrong about that. Demetrio deserves a massive rap.
What could he have done better?
Honestly, crazy. He dealt with crazy media. He dealt with the Ilya situation. He dealt with his team getting absolutely towed up like by the Dragons. Like, Ilias went from a player that was playing solidly start of the year to, oh, wow, by the end of the year going, fuck, he's really, really improving. Timmy, thoughts on this situation?
Yeah, 3 of the great re-signings we've seen in a long time. I suppose Melbourne have done similar with their spine down there recently, but what a coup for the Bunnies to get these 3 on board again. To have locked in, because Ilias is till I think at least the end of 25 as well, to have that spine, like one of the best spines in the NRL locked in for at least 3, well, it'll be about 3 years. Yeah. They can just build around that, it, plug gaps, find players.
And none of them are on like these gigantic $1.4 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like you see that, and as sort of Guru alluded to, they should be a premiership threat off the back of those re-signings for the next 2 to 3 years at the very least. And I suppose, playing devil's advocate, the only concern would be they're pretty long deals and the boys aren't getting any younger. Latrell's obviously fine, but Cody Walker...
Latrell is 25 years old.
Yeah. Cody Walker turns 33 tomorrow, so if Cody's listening to the potty on his lounge tomorrow, happy birthday, mate.
Happy birthday, Coach.
Damien Cook will be 34, 35 when that contract ends up. So if they do start to go downhill age-wise in the next couple of years, they will have big money players in their spine locked in. That being said, I think they're good enough and they'll be fine to get through it for another 3 years, but it is probably the question that has to be asked.
And I think full credit to South Sydney too to re-sign these 3 guys when the former coach Wayne Bennett is sitting up there with a pot of money, willing to take fucking anyone. They've managed to keep all 3 of them for unders.
Imagine how much he would have thrown at Latrell Mitchell to get up there. Yeah. Like 1.5, I reckon.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Like, no, without a doubt.
I think you just blank check territory to get a guy like Latrell if you're the Dolphins.
Oh, mate.
When you bring that up, like, it's stunning that not one of them ended up under Wayne up there, isn't it?
But in saying that, maybe that was a promise. Well, in saying that, Nichols ended up there.
Nicaramas ended up there.
There was a like not a contract, but like a kind of handshake,
an agreement,
kind of agreement.
Again, and it speaks to the fact of like the way, for example, the way the Broncos breakup happened with Wayne Bennett. You have to trust that Wayne knows what he's doing. Like, even if you disagree with everything, you have to be like, okay, he's the one that's won all these premierships. Allow him to prepare. And that was the big issue. Again, reportedly, we don't know exactly what went down. The big issue was that they didn't include Wayne Bennett in on the signing of other coaches. And he wanted to be able to prepare the playing roster and the coach for the years coming. And I think that even though there's no denying Wayne is a sly old fox and Wayne's in it for Wayne, and that's totally okay. But he left the Rabbitohs the way he wanted to leave, and it was a clean, good handover. And what's really interesting too is I think Demetrio was with him at the Broncos, wasn't he?
Yeah, Demetrio was his assistant.
And wasn't he the guy that he was going to put forward for the gig?
I think he wanted to do the same
transition
thing at Brisbane, yeah.
But he did it at the Rabbitohs.
He did it at South instead.
Yeah, so Rabbitohs, incredible. Like the way they've, since Russell Crowe's taken over the seat, like the way they've turned that club around is incredible.
It'll be interesting to see. I think South's played Dolphins. I think it's round 4 from memory. I think it'll be interesting to see if there's much that week between the coaches.
Yeah. I don't think there will be. I think there'll be a bit of banter for sure, but I just think that they left on such good terms that, so look, Rabbitohs, really, really exciting. Just the insanity about Latrell Mitchell and I agree, Timmy, in regards to the age of Cook and Walker. The devil's advocate question is like, yes, they're relatively injury-free now. They play a lot of footy, especially Cook, but Walker as well. Matter of fact, statistically, over the last, and this, I think Random Stats Guy put this up, over the last 5 years, or 4 or whatever it is, but it's like 4 or 5, Cody Walker's the best attacking player in the comp, which is pretty wild. Matter of fact, didn't it go even in the modern era? Could you go to his page? And he had like the most tries of any 5'8", and he was also in the top 5 or something for the most tries. Look, go to Random Stats Guy. I'm pretty sure it's there.
Over like a 4 or 5 year period?
Over a pretty long period. Yeah, over a pretty long period where it was like, I can't believe, and it was all wingers in that. So like wingers that, anyway, we'll get this set up for you. But you're right in the sense of like, when you're a bit older, it can be a bit of a snowball of like injury. You don't recover as well. So it's definitely a concern. I do think Cook is an ultimate professional, so he'll be doing everything he can. And Cody Walker just has that. He just looks like he's going to play to his 100. He really does.
So it was 0 tackle. This is like top try assist between 2018 to now. Cody Walker's on 105.
Far out. And he's number
So
one.
he's number one. Yeah.
And who's number 2?
Daly Cherry Evans. And then the best one, well, I thought the best one was this one. Try scored. Obviously, AJ's
That's
number
the
one.
try score one, yeah.
AJ's number one, but Cody Walker's number 3.
Number
He's
3.
5'8", yeah.
In the last 5 years, did you say?
Yeah, 2018 to 2022.
Who's
Wow.
number 2?
Josh Adokar.
So think about that. He has the most try assists and the 3rd most tries. Think about how good your attack has to be to do that. Like he might, like yeah, he's. You could make the argument he's one of the best attacking players of the last 10 years, maybe even 20 years. And I said one of. I didn't say the. But those stats don't lie. Tell me another 5'8" that's got the most try assists plus tries.
Isn't it a classic example, though, what a premiership does for your people?
He wins a premiership.
There's another one you throw in there, and it depends where it's come from, whether it's sort of the NRL or whether it's Fox or whoever's stats they're alluding to. But it changes, tries has changed with everyone, whoever determines it, with like quite substantially.
Yep.
I wish they'd all just get on the same page. Anyway,
yeah.
try contributions. Cody Walker would have so many because he's the one that goes to the line, draws them in, whips out the back, does all the hard yards, and then Latrell, whoever just tips on. I know the NRL stat. Latrell gets that try assist, but like that's all Cody's work. So that's not even taking in his contributions.
And you could literally just go to Latrell's try assist. Mark that up.
Cody. And Cody. I mean, Latrell does some incredible ball playing, but it doesn't happen without Cody Walker.
So there's no more 5'8" or even halfbacks in that top 10 of try scored. They're all just wingers, fullbacks.
It's amazing. It's actually fucking amazing. Like, and again, you're right, Guru. If he wins a comp, all of a sudden they start speaking about him.
Conversation changes.
But because he hasn't won a comp yet, so look, Rabbitohs, they're in such a strong position. If there is a way to handle what could have been the biggest disaster of all disasters, I honestly, there was a part of me that thought last year we were going to come on this podcast every week and talk about how the Rabbitohs club is imploding. I'm not saying, like, you know what I mean? There was a part of me saying there's a possibility that happens. If they're outside the 8, the whole narrative for the whole season in all the headlines will be Wayne Bennett left, Rabbitohs are done, rah. And they've completely silent. It's silence. It's silent. It's incredible.
Yeah, the other thing about the Rabbitohs is, and you know, however you want to look at it, I think it matters. Matty, is it the last 4 years in a row your season has finished with the Panthers?
3.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, if Penrith win the comp this year, they're the first team to win 3 in a row since Peter Sterling and Brett Kenny in the early 80s. Like, one of the greatest teams of all time. And that's been the only thing literally standing in South Sydney's way every single year.
Yeah, because obviously the grand final, 4 to 6 points or whatever. And even the game where they got knocked out by them, they were up 12-0 with like 10 to go.
And they're the only team to beat them in finals over the last 4 years.
Yeah,
too.
wow.
Jeez.
Outside of Storm. Yeah, wow.
Outside of Storm, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But like in finals, in the lead up to finals rather than the grand final. Look, Rabbitohs, incredible stuff. Now, on to Connor Watson injury at the Roosters. Fuck, when I saw this, man, again, it's like the Tom Trbojevic situation. You just go, far out, man. Best blokes in the history of mankind. Goes down injured. Look, they haven't confirmed it. Meeting with the surgeon this week. There was reports it was an ACL initially. Some are talking medial. I'm not sure what it is, but it was a non-contact running one, apparently. It seems like it was an ACL.
They're saying either that or patella. And then I saw a thing of NRL physio. He was, obviously it was a bit bittersweet, but he was saying, to people that are celebrating that it's not an ACL, a patella's similar time frame, but the rehab apparently is so much harder. So it's just a no-win.
It's a no-win
situation, whatever it is.
He's essentially out for the season, unless a miracle happens. So, yeah, Connor, I messaged him, obviously, let him know I'm thinking about him, rah. I will say, with players like that, and it's devastating, but a guy like Connor, it's such an opportunity to build his profile away from rugby league. And it's a silver lining, but when I see players like that, he's still relatively young. He's hot, which always helps, but he's loved by the fans. It's such an opportunity to build your own thing.
He's smart too, Connor.
He's smart. He'll get it, but I just think that if there's ever a year where he can build his profile off the field, he should be doing as much media as possible this off. And I know Roosters are a bit tight-lipped with all that kind of stuff, but anyway, that aside, devastated for Connor Watson. We spoke about it privately, Guru. Jake Turpin might have just rolled into one of the best situations of his entire career. Of seriously, and the thing is that a lot of people question the signing of Jake Turpin by the Roosters, but this is good roster management. This is great roster management. I'd assume Turpin's on minimum, which is about 120 or whatever it is. They have a ready-made replacement who you could even make the argument if he had a good preseason, he wins a bench spot anyway because it's not locked in. Now all of a sudden, Jake Turpin, he lands on that bench spot. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Jake Turpin, in 12 months' time, he could be a premiership winner out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Unwanted by Brisbane.
And he could also be a club's that needs a 9 getting signed for 400-500K.
I mean, I have no doubt that if he manages to land the 14 jersey, which I think he will, I think it's the obvious way to go, there'll be clubs diving at Jake Turpin next year or the year after. If Connor Watson comes, or when Connor Watson comes back, if there isn't a spot for Turpin, clubs will be diving at Jake Turpin. And I mean, he can play. He's been in a pretty poor situation up there in Brisbane. I think it's fair to say the worst possible time to be at Brisbane.
Oh.
Respectfully to Brisbane, they don't obviously value their 9s all that highly. They've shown that.
We went 3 years without a 9.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. I think this is going to work out very well for Jake Turpin. Do you think it'll have an impact on Brandon Smith? I didn't think he'd be like an 80-minute hooker as it was, but if you're going to carry Turpin, I think that just...
And on top of that, you lose the impact of Watson.
Yeah.
So it actually may... You're right, yeah.
I think it has a huge impact on Brandon Smith because Connor Watson could play 9, but he's probably better used in that 13 role. I think you could see when Radley's off the field, Brandon Smith going into that 13 role and Turpin. I reckon Turpin could play decent minutes at 9.
It's a good point. It's a really good point because it's not just the fact that Turpin's on the bench now and he's a longer hooker or whatever. It's the fact that Connor Watson would come on and have that impact.
It's the change in personnel.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. Really interesting. Timmy, what do you reckon about the situation?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just quickly. Guess how fucking old Connor Watson is?
23?
No, that's fucking crazy. 26.
I thought you were going to go...
Jesus, 23. No, he's 26.
You know when people say that and you go, I'll go huge unders here.
He's been playing since 2016, Guru.
I'll really screw him over. I go massive.
You fucked me there, Guru. You fucked me. You should have said 35 and I would have been able to shock the audience with a 26-year-old. Timmy, thoughts?
Yeah, there was a little bit of conjecture, I should say, over the Turpin signing when it happened. And I know 3 blokes who weren't against it were us 3. And it now looks like a masterstroke because they've got Turpin to come in for Connor Watson. And it's a good point you make about how it impacts Brandon Smith. And I think another thing, Guru, we sort of touched on pre-Christmas was that pending how the Roosters went early on and managing all these creative players and ball runners, if that didn't work out, that we wouldn't have been surprised to see Turpin be starting by around 7 or 8 or 9 if they started poorly. Well, this probably adds to that now, and well, maybe it's earlier if it doesn't click. So, as I said, he's not an impact player off the bench, Jake Turpin. He's a starting, get through hard work, sort of hooker. So, yeah, as I said, I think he probably starts as a 14, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him starting earlier on.
And I think the other thing about it is that Stili Tupanua, he's not going to be back till May. So Nat Butcher will start on an edge. That's one guy already off their bench they would have had as a middle. I think you're right. I reckon the idea of Brandon Smith playing as a middle early will become very appealing. If they have 1 or 2 injuries, it's going to become very appealing all of a sudden.
It's such an interesting signing, the Brandon Smith one, because he's so good that you're like, yeah, of course. But then you go he's also so versatile. It depends on how much they sign him for, I guess. If they got him for unders and he just wanted to be in Sydney, then fuck, what a get. But it almost, unless Trent Robinson has gone, I want to essentially invent a new style of play at the Roosters here. Not invent, but there's a specific style I want to play and it's just through the middle and just up your guts, rah. But I think a lot of people, even Roosters fans, are a bit what is the role going to be? Is he going to be a running 9 like we've seen him at the Storm, or is he going to be a service 9? will we be able to find that balance?
On face value, Kempy, looking at it completely as an analytical rugby league perspective, the signing didn't make sense. In the sense that, as you said, like, of course you're going to take Brandon Smith at your club every day of the week. You know, he's a test quality hooker. But for the style the Roosters play and how many attacking players they've got and so many mouths to feed, we've spoken about it ample times on this podcast, it didn't make a lot of sense. It's Trent Robinson. He'll make it work, but on face value, that signing I don't think made sense.
I'd love to know how much they got him for, because I think that would weigh up the value of it. Like, if they paid massive for him, then it was like, you know, is that really where the cap needed to go? But they must have got him for relatively less, because they couldn't. How could they afford a big deal there? How could they afford? But as we've said a million times, we have to remember he is the Dally M hooker of the year when he was playing there. Like, he's a fucking great hooker. It's not about how good he is at all. We all agree Brandon Smith is one of the best hookers in the comp. You know, on his day, the best hooker in the comp. It's just the style in which he plays when you've already got Joe Manu, Tedesco, all that kind of stuff.
And if they handed out a Dally M momentum player,
Oh, my
he
God.
shits into that as well.
Mate.
So, like, yes, he's won the Dally M hooker. I understand that argument. But he's also, I personally, he's better as a momentum man, which just adds to everything that is Brandon Smith.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a massive, massive year. It's just a matter of, will he have enough opportunity to show what he can show instead of having to give the ball to Kiri, to Walker, to Suoliti, to Manu, to Tedesco. Like, Suoliti has to get more involved. Not that he has to because he doesn't play enough. He has to get more involved because he's a star player now. Like, it's yeah. I mean, it's a great headache to have. Do you imagine how many clubs would kill to have that headache?
Unreal problem.
Oh my God. I will say though, and I feel like it's creeping up on us a bit, and we've been so focused on year seven or year six, but mainly year seven. But I do think there's a bit of a lack of quality nines floating around the NRL at the moment. When you compare the good clubs to, you know, really, all the bottom 8 clubs, their nine role really, they put someone in there that is filling a hole rather than a genuine number 9. Whereas I feel like there are a lot of 7. Like, the reason why I say this is because, like, 9 is the toughest role on the field, bar none, in my opinion. You're small, you've got to get through 1,000 tackles, plus you've got to play the ball every single. And I wonder whether it's a position where, like, because it is so tough and so hard, the less young kids want to go into it. Because obviously, like, you know, I'm not as tough as my father's generation. He's not as tough as his generation. You know what I mean? Like, we always get a little bit not as tough every generation. I don't know. I just wonder whether we'll see a shortage of 9s over the next few years.
I reckon it also makes it so difficult that Smith just set such a high fucking bar.
Yeah.
Set such a high bar, it's insane. And like, especially, like, you have a look at, we spoke about it a few weeks ago, like last year, team that won the comp, 2 hookers, Origin teams, 2 hookers. I think we are sort of starting to move in that direction. And if you're going to have 2 of them, you don't want to pay any of them big coin. Yeah. So you're sort of, I don't know, if you're a hooker in the NRL, like, I think you almost need to have an extra string to your bow.
Yeah.
I think that's such a fair take, Kempy, not one that I considered, but when you lay it all out there are a lot of clubs who are lacking a high-quality starting number 9 and have sort of band-aid solutions. And, yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and I don't really know why.
Well, like, even the Penrith Panthers, Mitch Kenny is a Band-Aid. Like, he gets through a ton of work. Sonny Luke, he may or may not be ready. That's the Penny Panthers.
Brisbane Broncos, Melbourne Seagulls, Canberra Raiders.
Yep. And these are all top, like, they can fight for the top 8.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're bottom of the table struggling clubs. Like, these are, so your top 4, you got Penrith, Eels. Eels had to go on by Hodgson, who's at the end of his career.
34-year-old coming off an ACL, 33, whatever he is.
So it's like, it is an interesting spot where I wonder whether we're losing a few of the younger fellas coming through to be a hooker.
Which is, I know we've spoken about it a lot, but it puzzles me so much that you had that kid that got hooker of the year in Queensland, Carl Beryl, and the one club that fucking signed him was the one club that didn't need him, Cronulla.
Yeah.
Do you think kids have just finally worked out that having to make 60 tackles a game every single week for the rest of your career is not as fun as it sounds?
I think, I think they...
Spoken like a true outside back.
It's going to be interesting to see, I guess, how they deal with it.
I mean, I think for most people, if you said who's the best hooker in rugby league, who would you both say?
Who's the what, sorry?
Who's the best 9 in rugby league?
Harry Grant.
Harry Grant, and then?
Well, to be honest, Harry Grant, then Ben Hunt.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people would say Ben Hunt is a halfback.
Yeah, it's wild.
Like you couldn't possibly have Ben Hunt out of your top 3.
Yeah, no, not for what he's done. Look, I mean, you could make the argument maybe like, maybe he hasn't gone through a whole year of playing hooker, so that's an argument against him, but I doubt it. I think he could get through a whole year.
But if you had to pick someone tomorrow to play hooker,
yeah,
Ben
for
Hunt,
sure.
It's interesting.
Anyway, on to the next topic. Matty Burton re-signs with the Doggies. What a great re-signing. I looked at the ladder last year. They finished 12th. Like, I think that's... A lot of fans probably aren't aware of that. They finished 12th. Now, don't get me wrong, there was a bit of a gap between 11th. Like, you had your squeeze between like 7th and 11th that was quite close. I think they were 2 wins away from Manly. But, like, I feel like a lot of people still view the Bulldogs as a spoon side. Not as a spoon side disrespectfully, but as a side that is at the bottom of the table. They finished 12th.
Their season started in round 10.
Yeah, and a lot of it was off the back of Matty Burton's incredible season. Like, incredible season. I think this is an amazing signing. I think that we're already seeing, have to give massive credit to the people that before Gus Gould, but I think we're already seeing his influence. The fact that there wasn't some huge bidding war, I think speaks really well for the club. This club is on the up, man. There's no other way to describe it. They are on the up. Getting a guy like Burton, like, he is a special, special player. Like, he's got that magic that you can't coach, you can't teach. In big moments, he wants the ball and he usually makes the big play. He's got that incredible bomb that I think that we're going to see for the next 10 years' time. People just going, holy heckers, what's going on there? Great re-signing. Timmy, what do you reckon about this one?
Yeah, there's a lot of elements to the Burton re-signing that are all obviously so good for the Bulldogs. And the first one is that, he doesn't have to worry about contract negotiations for a few years now. He doesn't have to worry about getting asked every media interview he does, getting asked where you're going to sign, all that sort of shit. And for some players in the NRL, and won't name names, anyone that I think, but there are players who once they re-sign and they're not in those contract years where they're playing for a contract, they regress. Like, that won't happen with Matty Burton. He's such a professional, such a hard worker, such a will to win. So I think you can only mean good things for him. But just in the bigger picture of looking at the Canterbury Bulldogs going forward, Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, I should say, it just shows faith towards the future, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the fact that Burton, knowing that he could sign at most clubs that he wants to, probably any he wants to in coming years, he's going, this is where I want my future to be. It now allows the Bulldogs to go to market and convince other players to come because they can play around Matty Burton. Such good signs.
Just having a look at what you said. At the end of round 13, they'd won 2 games, Canterbury.
Yeah.
They finished 12th.
12th.
Round 13, that's more than halfway through the season.
And the comp improved last year. It's not like yesteryear, the last couple of years, where it was like the bottom 8 were just...
Well, they were sitting last at that point. They were heading into round 14, bottom of the table. So
12th. That's a great finish.
And the team coming 14th had won twice as many games as them.
It's crazy. So good end to the year.
I love this signing though. I just love everything about Matt Burton. His attitude. He's like, we were at a Canterbury game last year, and just every time he touched the ball, everyone stood up, didn't they? Like, he's got something special about him.
Something special. Like, he went into Origin and killed it in centre. Like, out of position. This is how good this guy is. Matter of fact, didn't he win a Dally M at centre?
Yep.
He won a Dally M at centre, but he's a 6.
And a premiership.
Like, then he goes over it with the Australian squad. Massive smoky. And the times he played were amazing. Like the flick back in for Josh Addo-Carr to score that try with the grubber. Like, this kid is special. So special.
Maybe that one in 10 years' time where you sit back and tell people It'll be an NRL fact. You know, Matty Burton started his career as a centre and got Dally M centre. And the people are like, nah.
No way, 100%.
Not so much Penrith fans, but people are like, nah, sure.
Be like Freddie Fittler to a degree.
Yeah.
It was Freddie at Penrith winning Dally M Centre of the Year.
Exactly.
Yep. And everyone, like, you know, even me.
And Phil Gould brings him to Canterbury.
Crazy.
Same thing at the Roosters.
Crazy. So Matty Burton re-signing, it's massive. The club's on and up. Look, I hope they give Flanagan a chance to prove that he can be the 7 for him. The whispers around seem like they're going to go in a different direction, as in the reports and that. I still think Flanagan can be the perfect half for Burton. I really do. But, like, outside of that, they're probably just missing a fullback, like a top-tier fullback. Like, for example, if they had a top-tier fullback, you know, and Averillo may develop into one, but if they had a top-tier fullback, like, I think Flanagan is good enough to partner Burton and Marnie to play finals footy. Like, I really do.
Where do you boys see Burton in 5 years' time in terms of the 5'8" v halfback? Do we see him as that organising halfback getting around? Do we see him as that bigger-bodied Cam Munster ball-running 5'8"? Where do you think he's in 5 years' time?
The Cam Munster, I think.
Yep.
I wouldn't put the 7. There's something to be said about just a good structured little 7. Your Chad Townsends, your Adam Reynolds, those guys. Now, you know, Storm break the mould a little bit with Jerome Hughes, but we're talking about the Melbourne Storm here. They're the exception, not the rule. You know, what's interesting is, like, even a guy like Sam Walker, they tried to move to 6, and he's a 7, an out-and-out 7, moves back, plays his best footy all year there. I think there's something to be said for just genuine 7s.
And and sometimes it's hard to put in words what a genuine 6 looks like, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
And he's one of them.
Oh, for sure.
And I think the thing is and apologies if I sound like a broken record, and you'll probably get sick of me saying it this year, but he's just that perfect guy to swing and play both sides of the ruck as a 5'8". Don't lock him down on the left edge of the Dogs. Let him play both sides. Like, the Raiders have started at times to do it with Jackie White and a little bit, but, like, he's too good to be held to one edge. And that's where you need a good organising number 7 to run the show through the middle, and he just swings off both sides. You get so much more out of a good 5'8" doing that. Yeah,
no, I agree. And also, like, your roster is around him anyway. You know, Flanagan, like, he's going to be, in my opinion, a good, solid organising 7. But you're wasting Burton by sticking him on an edge and just leaving him there. Like, your players should all be built around Burton delivering something, whether it be either side of the ruck, rather than, all right, Flano, you take care of that side. And because that's just, I don't think that's the player Flano is. I think he's a good kicker, got a good pass, get you around the park. But Burton that's what he's there for, is to attack.
The Bunnies do that with Cody Walker. Swings both sides, plays off Ilias or Reynolds or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And he just carves up both edges and the attack revolves around that.
Yeah.
Do the same with Birdo.
I hear it quite often when people talk about Flano. We can't win a comp this year with Flano. There's about 4 halfbacks you can win a comp with this year, potentially.
Well, see, like, when I say, we can't win a comp without Flano, it's like, you do realise the Broncos won a comp with Shane Perry.
Yep.
You know, so it's not, you don't need a superstar in the 7.
And if you've got yourself a superstar at 9, a superstar at 6, and a superstar potentially at 1,
you
got to give somewhere.
Which is probably going to be
pack. You've got to give somewhere.
It's probably going to be Crichton at fullback, because, basically the Penrith Panthers have come out and said that, like, they can't match the offers he's going to get. You're telling me a spine of Critter, Marnie, Burton, and Flanagan aren't good enough to win a comp in 3 or 4 years? Fuck. I think that's good enough spine. I'm not saying they will, but if you go back and look at other spines that were young and developed together, like, that would be on par with most young spines that went. Like, if you went back and looked at the Penrith spine a couple of years ago, people would have said Edwards can't win a premiership at fullback. And look what he did.
Yep. Because you had other pieces around him, same as Canterbury have with your kick-out, your Faitala Mariners.
Yep.
Your Josh Addo-Cars. If Bronson Xerri gets back to 70% of what he was, got yourself a star there too. Like, I think Canterbury are balancing their squad really well. There was a photo the other day of them training, and it was Andrew Davey, and he was taking a hit up, and in the background you could see RFM and Viliami kick out. And I was just standing there going, how fucking good is that to have, that if one of those two guys gets injured, this guy can come straight in, who's handled himself in first grade. Like, their depth is unreal.
Yeah. And they finished 12th. You know, like, it's not like they finish spoon again and it's hope for the best. Like they finished 12th. They just need to make a small amount of progress. Put it this way, if they played the way they played in the last half of the year, the whole year, they'd be fighting for the 8. And that's not fucking hyperbolic.
And I think the other thing with Flano you need to remember is that, the only time he's had a decent coach was when he was at the Roosters. They did make it to the top 4.
I know.
It's not like they came fucking last. Give him a shot with Serraldo, who we believe is going to be the next big thing in coaching. I just think with Flano, you've got to make your judgment at the end of this season.
Yeah, I agree. Got everything around him to do well. I think he'll be okay. Just quickly on the Crichton situation, do you think he'll end up there, the Doggies?
I really do. Yeah.
Yeah. Good, bad?
Great. Yeah, I mean, money will be the determining factor because I'm such a skeptic with outside backs wanting to move to fullback before I've seen them have the ability to ball play. And I'm not saying Crichton doesn't have that, but if we know it's an outside back going to fullback that we know can ball play, it takes them when they're a star like Crichton from 750 to $1 million, as much as $1 million. But I just want to see that ball playing in him. But again, face value, Crichton to the Bulldogs, absolutely.
Well, what's interesting is so the reports are he's on around 600K a year, 700K a year. If I'm on 700K a year at Panthers winning comps,
not bad.
I'm staying, at least for the first few years of my career.
My understanding of the situation is that's his mindset as well.
Okay. So
I think there's 2 narratives being sold with Stephen Crichton, which I think it'll all come out eventually.
Where do you reckon he'll be?
I do think he'll end up at Canterbury, and I want to see him at Canterbury because I want to see him challenge himself and play fullback. But I think the narrative being sold of him chasing money to get out of Penrith isn't the reality of it.
Oh, okay. So he's not really on 600K a year.
I'm not sure what he's on, but I don't think he's trying to push every penny out of Penrith like what's being portrayed.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, fuck. It's part of the business,
Which
baby.
won't shock anyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's what clubs do. They're trying to protect their image and make it out like they're the one being reasonable.
But I think when you have a look at the Penrith Panthers, you have a look at the amount of guys they've re-signed in the last year. They've essentially re-signed the entire team.
Yeah.
So
they're just squeezing him to probably take a downgrade or less money than what he's worth. And he's like, well, it's not even about fullback.
It's not about fullback.
Yeah. Okay. That sucks, man.
Yeah.
And that's one of those situations. And look, again, this is all just our understanding, but fans don't hear that, They just hear a guy wants to play fullback and he wants to get all this money when it's like, and then the player doesn't have the ability. Well, he does, but he can't because then he'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
But he can't come out and say, no, that's not actually true at all. I'm not taking an upgrade. I'm just looking for what I'm on and I can't, or whatever it is. When situations like that happen and the club is allegedly, squeezing someone to be on less money or whatever, that's when I go, you know what, bro? Take the money then. Go and get the big deal. If you're going to get if you're going to get portrayed as the guy looking for the big deal, get the biggest deal you can then. Because regardless of what you do now, people are going to think that's the reason why you left. So you may as well get something for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think him at the Dogs. I agree with you in regards to fullback ball playing and could he go back and ball play? He has played a bit of fullback at the Penny Panthers, and I thought he played really well when he played there. I think that even if his ball playing isn't the best, I still think that if the Doggies can afford him, he's worth getting at fullback there because he's such a high quality player that it's better than it puts you closer to making the top 4 or even top 8. So it's an interesting balance you got to strike. Do you hold your horses and wait for a perfect fullback to come on the market, or do you go, this guy may be able to come a fullback?
You can get him.
We know he's a great ball runner. We know he's a Dally M centre winner of the year. So at the very least, we've got literally one of the best centres in the comp. We know he's a super athlete.
And if he can't develop that ball playing like you'd hope he could at fullback, it doesn't mean he can't still be a gun there, and it doesn't mean you can't compete come September in finals football. Would it be what you're after in this gun ball playing superstar fullback? Maybe not, but it doesn't make it a bad sign even if he doesn't.
Well, people forget all the time because he's credited with being so good at it. Billy Slater was not a ball playing fullback when he came into the comp. For the first few years, he was a ball runner, and that was essentially all he was known for. He developed that, and I understand it's at the Storm and they do that so well, but to just automatically go, nah, can't do it. Like Billy Slater, who many think is the GOAT fullback, the standard that you set yourself against, he was not a ball player for the first few years of his career and eventually turned himself into. Even Teddy initially wasn't the best ball player at the back there. So you can learn that kind of stuff.
Dylan Edwards has a grand total of 28 try assists throughout his career.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say he's a ball player? I wouldn't say he's a ball player.
Nope. He only plays on one side of the ruck.
Yeah. I'm so happy for him, man.
And there's nothing wrong with that either.
No, there's nothing wrong.
He plays his
You
role
can win comps.
perfectly. You can win comps like that.
So, yeah, I think if the Canterbury Bulldogs can get him and he gets what he wants and rah-rah, I think it's a great deal. Now, quickly, Melbourne Storm. Ryan Papenhuyzen announced that he'll be heading over to the USA. He's already over there for his shattered knee. That's what it was basically called, a shattered knee. I think that's a technical term. This one is, if there's one bloke that can push through this, it's Ryan Papenhuyzen. I'm such a fan of him. Just like the Tom Trbojevic and the Connor Watsons, they're such good examples for the game. And Ryan Papenhuyzen's story is especially special. He's a small fella that a lot of people said you're too small to play rugby league. He's an incredible player. The toughness, the bravery that he plays with, the way he played in that grand final, the highlights that he has, he's amazing. But it is concerning that, the initial reports was like he should be sweet for round one. But the reports coming out now is that he's not even actually running yet. Thoughts on the Ryan Papenhuyzen situation?
I'm worried. I really am. I thought he'd be a little bit further ahead than what he is. I think we spoke pre-show. Like there was a game of cricket yesterday he was meant to feature in that was announced ages ago, whether that was just a publicity thing, I think as you said or whatever. But I don't know. It just worries me that he's going over there to America and he hasn't started running yet at all. I thought he'd be much further ahead than this.
Well, also, like, just to piggyback on your point, I don't think his trip was planned. It feels like, oh shit, this isn't working. We need to do something.
Yeah, to be fair, Matty, I'm not sure if you remember, we did like a Melbourne Storm Best 17 about 5 weeks ago. And there was a girl that commented about 6 or 7 really weirdly specific things. The last thing she said was Ryan Papenhuyzen is going to America as well. They haven't announced it yet. And I remember reading it just going, oh, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
As if we would know by now if he was. So, and I mean, I don't know. 5 or 6 weeks ago, I don't know. It could have been before that as well. Maybe Melbourne have just kept this under wraps. Well, I'm not sure.
Wouldn't you get him there early though?
Oh, you would think so, yeah. But
maybe he wasn't there on his program. Yeah, look.
Maybe there's a reason for going now
for sure.
as far as. But I did find that interesting that it was so out of the blue 5 or 6 weeks ago. The other sort of things she said were very specific Melbourne things. So I don't know. Maybe it has been known down there, but clubs being good clubs. You
kept under wraps. Timmy, thoughts?
The girl's name was Ellen Papenhuyzen. Guru didn't put 2 and 2 together. How does she know all this? I'm with Guru. I'm really concerned about little Pappy and how he's going to, even if he doesn't get the start of the season or the first 10 rounds, it's just when he does eventually get back, how's he going to be? Because his game is so reliant on his speed. And pretty much any time I run into any medical professional, I ask him, how's Tommy coming back? How's Pappy coming back? How's anyone coming back? NRL related. And you ask about Pappy and all of them talk about like the busted kneecap, snapped patella, whatever you want to call it. They're just like, it's a bad injury. And I feel like it's been played down by media for whatever reason, probably lack of knowledge, but it takes a lot to come back from. Now, as I said, his entire game revolves around his speed. And if he loses any of that speed, what sort of player is Pappy going to be? Now, I know that's a grim way of looking at it, but I definitely have my concerns. He's now going over to America, so that suggests that he is behind on his preparation, or his rehab, I should say. So, I don't know. We'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, if this America trip was planned, then it's like, well, maybe it's not as concerning. But if it's come up in the last 4 or 5 weeks because he's struggling, that's when I go, oh shit. So shattered his knee. Did he also snap? So we know exactly what he did.
Snapped his kneecap, wasn't it?
Oh man, he's
like the X-ray looked like it was like a shattered bit of glass.
Yeah,
almost, like.
And that's the thing with like injuries like that. You can't prepare for that. You can't train and all that kind of stuff for that. It's just a freak accident. another thing as well is like, even if he does get back to 100%, then there's the mental side of things of like going into contact and impact and all that. Like I remember when I broke my ribs and my lung collapsed, like it took a bit to get confident in contact again because you're just thinking the whole time it's going to get snapped again.
Well, and I think if you think back to a couple of years ago when he had all those head knocks and he came back, it took him a long time to
get confident
find
again.
his confidence.
Understandably so. Yeah.
So,
and then he was incredible after that, but
Yeah, he didn't like do any like ACL or anything, but he fractured the bone in 10 different pieces. So basically shattered is the right word.
far out, man. I wonder. Yeah. Anyway, so really concerning for Pappy. I really hope he bounces back from it. The fact, because like, how many months is that now? And he's not running yet. I would love to know what is the normal time for a shattered kneecap. Like, is it 6 months? Is it 9 months? Because like, I remember initially that the reports like, oh well, it's actually not as bad as an ACL. It's only about 3 months or whatever. But then the other people say no, it's actually fucking.
Well,
pretty bad.
the injury was sustained in July, so it's been about 6 months now.
Wow, and he's not running yet. So an ACL, you'd be running by now, wouldn't you?
Well, ACL, you're back in what, 9 months? Maybe?
9 months.
Yeah.
9
So by now you'd be
Playing
I
in
don't
9
know,
months.
but yeah.
You'd be jogging, I guess,
you'd be
straight line running maybe?
Like if you're playing in 9 months, surely you're close to running.
6
Yeah.
months is nearly have to be straight line running.
I just,
by then.
yeah, so it's not panic stations at all, guys. Storm fans, not sitting there going, oh fuck, his career over. It's just like it feels like it come out of the blue, and it's just a bit like, oh, because like put it this way, in this whole off season, I was not ever thinking about Papenhuyzen's going to be a concern coming back to footy at all. Like I was like, he'll rehab, he'll be sweet. No one trains. I mean, he is genuinely known for how hard he trains. The Melbourne Storm are the best in the business.
I just Googled fractured kneecap recovery time, and it says depending on your age and health, it takes about 3 to 6 months to recover from a broken kneecap. But obviously, very severe patella injuries may take longer.
Yeah, okay.
So this is obviously high level.
Anyway,
severe.
we're absolutely sending our best wishes to Papenhuyzen, all the boys, to Tommy, to Papenhuyzen, to Connor Watson, anyone else that's gotten injured. It is the pits, guys. It really is the pits. Do you think Storm have to, I guess, look? I mean, I know they would be, but if he doesn't come back and already struggling, does that reshape their spine in the sense that like they've invested so much money into these other guys? They probably got Papenhuyzen a bit cheaper than what he probably is market value pre-knee situation. Do they need to go on the market? Do they develop someone? What do they do?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've obviously got Nick Meaney there who can jump in at 1 if you want to go down that avenue. You could move Munster there. You could maybe bring young Pizzette up into the side to play 6. Or you could go to market as well. I think I'd probably try and go to market. So I'm not sure who's out there or whatever, but I think I would be trying to go out and find someone.
Because that's the interesting one. Like, another year developed, it's probably... I haven't seen enough of him to know when he's going to be ready for the NRL, but let's say it's not this year and it's, you're looking at 2024. You can always move Munster back to fullback and Pizzette, who looks awesome.
Yeah.
What we've seen briefly, him to Pittner.
Is Pizzette more of a 7 though? And maybe, because like Hughes could be a 6 for sure. There's no doubt.
I think he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's ready this year, personally.
No, but like as in long term.
Long term. I don't know. From the little I've seen of him, I'm not sure either way.
Yeah,
to be
okay.
honest with you. I'm not.
He was great in the under-19s New South Wales versus Queensland. He killed it. He had like fucking 3 or 4 try
He
assists.
was like a 7 in that. And
Yeah.
between him and Jerome Hughes, if he is as good as we sort of think he might be, fine, Munster to fullback, you're pretty covered.
Well, in that game, his halves partner was Tom Weaver, who's at the Titans, and I would have definitely said he was the better 7 in the side coming into it. Yeah, but that night it looked very different.
Titans are the best halves scouters in the history of mankind. They just struggle to get them past that. Because like they've had what? So they had Ash Taylor, one of the best 7s we've seen come through. And this is not just me saying it. This is like Joey Johns, fucking Jonathan, whoever you want to say. Then they had Tanner Boyd, who was Australian 7.
They've currently got 3 Australian schoolboy halfbacks in their squad, and I don't think any of them are playing halfback.
Hey, man.
Got Weaver, Tanner Boyd. Is there another one? Who am I missing? Oh, who was the halfback last year? Sexton.
What's really interesting, and it really puts into focus, like, how bad the situation is at the Broncos. I don't know currently, but it was. Is we have all these other clubs that are massively struggling, and not a single one of them has had players come out and say what 2 players of the Broncos have said now. It really pulls it into perspective. Like, oh shit, like you can get lost in the fact, young kids said some stupid stuff, but you're like, but no one else is ever doing that.
Name the last time another player came out and did it.
Two players. Okay. But yeah, Ryan Papenhuyzen sending the best wishes. Storm will deal with it. They always bloody do. Really interesting. I've seen some ladders that have predicted Storm top. And so we might be in the minority of, we're not saying Storm will miss the 8 or anything like that, but in the minority of like, maybe they've got a bit of growing to do with their forward pack. Because I've seen a few people say that they could win the comp. Because they could win the comp, but had them at number 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into predictions later. Now, I'm just trying to see if we got anything before the rugby player deal. I don't think we do. Okay, the RLPA. So I think it was the day before Christmas. Huge announcements across all big media platforms. Record breaking this, record breaking that. Deal has been agreed to. The RLPA, the players have agreed to a deal with the NRL. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. We go, how good, deal done. Then the RLPA come out and say, we were not consulted about this. The deal is not agreed to. It's caused chaos. I think the women still are unable to sign because they literally just don't know what the cap's going to be because it hasn't been agreed to yet. The RLPA has come out and basically said, they've broken a lot of trust by doing this and almost like seeming like forcing them into a deal. Landis has come out and basically said that, could you get the quote up what Landis said? But it was along the lines of, RLPA are using alarmist language and trying to make this, as big as possible. So look, as we've said ad nauseum, we predicted this would happen. Stuff would be getting leaked, and for people listening, I'm doing these quotation marks, leaked. This is just negotiations at higher levels. The NRL, they want to keep as much money as possible for themselves. They're a business. The RLPA, they feel they want to be compensated fairly. I will say, when you see things like record-breaking, this, that, every time they do a deal, it's going to be record-breaking because it's a new deal. Like, we go up, we don't go down.
If it's not record-breaking, they'll say historic deal just because they can't say record-breaking.
Yeah. It's like just using language to push this narrative that these... Anyway, thoughts on the situation, Gurina?
Can be the more I read on this, the less idea I have, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
I've got no idea where this all... I can't believe it's still coming on. I really can't.
Well, I just think that, like, if what the RLPA is saying is correct, where they just want not an upgrade, the same percent as what they were on before, if that is true, that is not unreasonable in my opinion. That's very, very, very reasonable. The same percentage as what they've had. Timmy, what do you think about the situation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different ways to target it based on the information we've been given. The one that I like is probably the one that Harry Grant was controversially knocked for, and that was talking about wanting essentially the development players to get more money because they were the ones on, 40, 50K a year to be training full-time, whatnot. And what I'm reading is that development list, so I assume that'll be the players 26 to 30, that allowance of the cap has gone from 240 to 650K. Which is quite a substantial increase. So those players who are training full-time, busting their ass, they can do so on what will be a better full-time salary. So I think that's definitely a win for all the fringe NRL players out there.
The vibe I got from the RLPA with their statement was they may have begun to agree with the broad strokes of it, but they seemed upset that it was straight to the media that everything is agreed to, and there were a lot of other things that they hadn't agreed to. I think they're getting closer. I think they'll get it done soon. Because for the NRL to come out and do that, they've clearly had some positive feedback from the players, from the RLPA of, yeah, that seems about right. When you read the RLPA, it seems like there are the finer details that haven't been agreed to yet.
So Valandi's quote was, "It's unnecessary scaremongering. The emotional language that is used is a complete beat up. We're always within our legal right to set a salary cap, and we've done that to give certainty to the club and the game."
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue with setting the cap. I think they were more upset about the fact that it was released to the media.
Yeah.
As I said, Landy's trying to run a business. The players are trying to, all that kind of stuff. So This is just negotiations, man. Negotiations. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, Matty. Dog-eat-dog world. I hope it gets sorted, though, really soon. But I agree with you in regards to the increase. What I will say is, does the cap go up each year over that 5-year period, or does it stay the same over that 5-year period? So when they throw out things like it's gone up 25%, I think they're not taking into consideration has it gone up 25% from 5 years ago, which actually is only 5% then.
No. It's the 2023 Premiership salary cap will increase to 12.1 million in 23 from 9.6 in 22.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that agreement that we just went through, that was agreed to 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So if it's a 25% increase,
What are you saying?
Yeah, true.
it's actually 5% each year rather than on that last year. But I could be wrong. If the salary cap was agreed to 5 years ago and it increased each year up to the 9 point whatever million, then it is a 25% increase. But I feel like year on year, it stays the same for those 5 years. And so it sounds like a dramatic jump of like 25%. That's massive, but that's compared to 5 years ago, essentially. Which you would hope that the business is generating 5% more revenue per every single year. But yeah.
So yeah, it kind of went up every year, but not by much. So 2018 was 9.4, 2019 was 9.6, 2020 was 9.8, 2021 was 9.9. So yeah, it did go up every year.
By like,
But like
100
by
grand or
100 grand,
two.
yeah.
So basically, compared to 9.1, it's gone up basically 25 to about 28% compared to 5 years ago. Anyway, guys, hopefully it gets done. I really do hope it gets done. I do feel for the playing group, and I can understand where the NRL are coming from. They're trying to make profit. They're trying to make money. As I've said all along, like the one thing I would hope, and I'm assuming they are, is that if they are trying to hold more money back for the NRL, it would be really good to see where that is planned to go. You know, like, are we putting that back into country rugby league? Are we putting that back into, local footy and getting people into the game, rather than it just sitting where people get to take it out of the game kind of thing. Now, other news as well. Reggie Bush shared on an old NRL video. Couldn't believe how hard they were running. And then had a second tweet saying he went to State of Origin once and it was a bloodbath. Someone getting carted off every 5 minutes. A bit of a GST on that story, Reggie. But and I wanted to ask you boys, what do you reckon a tougher game is? League or gridiron?
League by a country mile.
Okay. Timmy?
Oh, not even a question, mate. They've got every bit of protective equipment under the sun they can use.
Okay.
They also have a break every 10 seconds.
Well, that was my point. If you talked about contact, there could be an argument that NFL is tougher because they have those pads on, so they think, well, they can. They don't get as hurt when they fucking drive in with their heads and that. The problem that a lot of people don't know, why don't NRL players just wear headgears and that? The problem is that it's not about the impact, like pressure on your skull that makes you get CTE. It's about your brain wobbling around. So the argument is NFL actually suffer more from CTE because you've got blokes flying out of nowhere and their brain is going crazy everywhere. Whereas NRL at least has the protection of, I don't want to cut myself, I don't want to be head-on-head clash.
Them flying at each other head first, that doesn't make them tough, that makes them lunatics.
Matty, what's tougher?
Rugby league. And I think because like you got our forwards in rugby league who are like making 200 metres, making 40 tackles. In that game, they're attacking players attack. Then when it's time to defend, they go off and get replaced by a new team.
Yeah,
and also, I think it's also tough to play tough under fatigue. And like, it's totally different when it comes to NFL. Like there's no real fatigue.
Well, that's my point as well. I think that like one of the best quotes ever, I think it was Bill Belichick that said it, fatigue makes cowards of us all. You can be the toughest guy ever. First 30 seconds, you are so fucking hard to take down and everyone's scared of the big guy. And then you look 10 minutes later, the guy's hands on his knees, he's calling for a rest, rah. And that's where I think that you could make the argument that the impact in NFL is greater, for sure. You could make that argument because they're all rested. They've got the pads on so they can go harder. But the fatigue side of rugby league, in my opinion, it makes it a much tougher game.
I just think because we're so used to rugby league, like when you think about just the fundamentals of it, that you've got 13 guys that you make them stand 10 metres back so that you can get a run up to come at them. Like, it's fucking brutal.
Well, people film themselves in the backyard doing it the run it straight challenge. That's done every game,
Every tackle.
everywhere, all the time. Matter of fact, you could argue that it's even worse because usually the run it straight, the dude tackling stands still and the guy runs it at him. Whereas rugby, blokes are shooting off the line, they're shooting off the line to hit each other. I think as a culture we're desensitized to how aggressive and violent rugby league is.
For sure.
Look, you've got MMA fighters, like UFC fighters that are like, fuck that, I don't want to play rugby league. And I'm not saying that it's tougher than MMA at all, but what I'm saying is you got the toughest people in the world that don't want to play rugby league. And then rugby league players will be the same, like, I don't want to fucking fight. So I think fatigue makes it a bit...
And NFL players are also all built like Greek goddesses, about 125 kilos, not an ounce of body fat, muscles bulge where muscles shouldn't bulge. NRL, we've got 70 kilo Jaden Campbell running at Jason Taumalolo, getting smashed by him. It's like, that doesn't happen over there.
Yeah, no way.
They're all too big.
They're all massive. Because they can afford to be, because they don't need to be fit. They just need to be explosive.
You also, like, if you look at the NFL, like they added an 18th game this year. Normally it's only been 17, and it's been a massive controversy over there. So you think if you go all the way to the Super Bowl, you'll play 23, 24 games. That's an NRL regular season. That's not including rep games. That's not including finals. Nothing.
And on top of that, like, they're only playing for, like, actually playing as an attacking player, like, what, 20 minutes a game? Like, actually on the field running? Maybe 30?
You don't have to play defense, or you don't have to play attack. One of the two, take your pick.
It's like footy players are literally going out there 80 minutes.
Like we're sitting here, like we would sit here and criticise a 70 kilo halfback because he can't tackle.
So true. Yeah. So true. And to NFL fans out there, not to say NFL isn't tough as anything, it's fucking wild, especially the contact, absolutely insane. Catching balls with blokes flying at you can't see, that's wild.
Then again, Kempy made it in our game, so...
Yeah, if I can make it, boys. I was going to say anyone, but... Super League, set to introduce the green card. If a player is injured, they're sent from the field for 2 minutes to be assessed. The aim is to stop from faking injuries staying down. If it works, and coaches will find a way to fuck with it, they always do. But if it works, I like it. I do not like games. Unless it is a very serious injury, I don't want the game stopped at all. I think, let's say a guy hurts his ankle, like sprains his ankle. Like, in my opinion, it's all part of rugby league. These things happen. It's how you deal with them. And it's not to be callous to people that get injured. I just think that the game should continue flowing, and I don't like trainers being able to just go, no, stop the game. I would much rather, if you truly feel like that player is injured, get your green card, boom, get him off, and have a look at him and put him back on. Now, I understand it all sounds great in practice, in theory, and then we put it in practice and someone will fucking change the whole thing. The NRL is reportedly watching this quite closely. I think it's good to watch this. What do you reckon, Gurino?
I cannot wait until the Canberra Raiders are down to 12 for 2 minutes. They concede a try and Ricky Stewart absolutely runs a fucking train on the green card after his game. But
why do you have to pick on Ricky, mate? There's a bunch of coaches who blow.
The green card, the green machine. That's how it all works.
You know it's going to be Ricky. It's got to be Ricky.
To be fair, though, it would be his own trainer's choice to use that card.
That's why I feel sorry for the trainer.
Yeah, to make that
very
call.
nervous if I was that trainer.
The former ex-Canberra Raiders trainer.
As you said, Kempy, coaches, they will always find a way to take advantage of this sort of stuff. I like it in theory. I think it has been happening in the Super League, or it's coming in full-time next year or whatever, so I'd like to see a bit more of it, see how it plays out. I'm sure we'll have issues somewhere, but on theory, I like it.
Timmy, what do you reckon, mate?
Yeah, again, in theory, it sounds great, doesn't it? So I haven't thought through it a lot, to be honest, but essentially it's up to the player to be like, to his trainer straight away, like, gives a signal, I need the green card. Otherwise, you just don't do it.
Yeah.
And then so what? If the trainer or, say, the player don't signal for it straight away, the ref will just let play go on.
I assume so, unless he probably has, what's the fucking word? He probably has leeway. That's not the right word, but he has the leeway to maybe discretion. He has the discretion to probably call what he sees.
Yeah. If he has to. If something bad, he can call it.
Call it straight away. But I think this would be more like, mate, unless you see something like where you're like, yep, we're stopping the game, it's on the trainer rather than the coach to go, green card, boom, bring him off, check him out, bring him back on.
Sounds pretty good.
It sounds good, but we all know, everyone listening right now, I'm sure there's someone driving a car right now going, this is exactly the loophole I'd be using, and they'll probably leave a comment, and it's fair enough. You can leave the comment, let us know how this will be fucking exploited.
It's too good to be true.
It's too good to be true.
You'll end up with trainers on the sideline just hovering with the green.
Oh, mate, there'll be
But they're
something.
only losing. They say there'll be something, but they're only losing out if they do, because they lose a play for 2 minutes. Like that's
Yeah, but if a team's on the front foot and got the advantage,
And you pull the green card to stop play.
You just got to pull together for one fucking set.
Oh, Guru, you've already ruined it. Can it? Idea shit.
shove your logic up your ass.
But
mate.
maybe
Just enjoy it while we got it.
But maybe part of the rule is that in a stop and play, maybe, unless the ref deems it like dangerous that they're in the line. Because what's annoying is I always thought that was the rule. Unless the player is in the ruck fucked up, you keep going. Like that's what I thought the rule was. But
Cramps will be a funny one.
oh, that's part of the game. Get them off.
And you know, actually, with a cramp scenario, they won't get them off. They'll just have to stay there and get the shit sorted themselves.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like that's a part of rugby league.
Yeah,
like,
they're awesome.
You got to push through it. And if you're not fit, if you're cramping because you've done sometimes you cramp because you've played so hard, you've taken too many runs. But if you're cramping because you're not fit enough, then that's part of the game.
Drink more pickle juice.
Drink more pickle juice. It tastes like absolute dog shit.
I'm kind of excited to see how the coaches will take advantage.
Oh, they'll take advantage
It'll
of
be
it.
good to see the first time just to watch all the carnage fucking play.
Who will be the first coach? It'll be Craig Bellamy.
He's the best. He's the master. He's the master. But it's really interesting. Like when the 6 again rule came in, get rid of the wrestle. We're all like, yeah, fuck the wrestle. And then like 12 months in, we were like, whoa. This is being totally exploited here. This is fucking the game up. Let's just pull it back a bit. So I think we're all a bit more cautiously optimistic about this one. Now, also Dragons sign Murdoch Masilla, and Raiders will officially sign Danny Levi. On top of that, Tessie New signs with the Dolphins. Let's talk about Tessie New first. I had a discussion. It wasn't bad at all online about a bloke. The bloke just said, "Oh, he's a Q-Cup player at best," and I was just like he's 21. Give him some time. And it wasn't a bad discussion at all. I got like he's absolutely entitled to his opinion. He was respectful, and I really appreciate those chats. And I can see where he's coming from in the sense that, like, you know, Tessie has had some games where he hasn't been the best, but I do think that we forget he's 21 years old. Like, this is a good young outside back that. I think it's a great signing for the Dolphins. Like, is it the superstar they need? Obviously not. But it does fill out their backs a little bit more where he can either play centre or Hamiso can play centre and he can play fullback. It gives them, because what we were talking about the Dolphins, the one thing we're worried about is if Hamiso doesn't turn out to be a fullback, they are fucked. Like, they're fucked. Whereas Tessie, we at least know he has played some really good games at fullback. Just a few of the errors and decisions that in other games that he didn't do well. I think this is a great signing. He's 21 years old, guys. We have to be patient with some of these players. He also had some pretty bad off-field stuff about a year ago, or about that. Was it about a year ago, Guru?
Around about that, yeah.
So he's been through a lot off the field. There were periods I think it was a 3-game run where it was after they'd signed Reece Walsh, where I was going, Walsh may not walk into this jersey. That's how good he played. And then after that, he didn't play. He had a few games where it wasn't the best. They brought Tomato Martin back in. But, like, he has played well at NRL. I think give him a chance.
If he didn't have that 3 or 4 game stretch last year that you're talking about, I'd be very nervous about this. But he did show in that month or so, and I know he didn't back it up after that. But I tell you what, I'd be very interested to know if, like, is it in Hamiso's contract that he's going to play fullback? Is he of the mindset that he's going to be the fullback? I'm not convinced he is a 1, but you would think that in order for him to go there, he would probably go there for an opportunity to play 1, wouldn't you?
Surely. You're not going there to play centre, are you? I mean, he's on the bench at the moment. He would have got massive offers from other clubs, surely.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
But I'm not convinced on either of them as fullbacks.
Well, I think Tessie's a centre.
So do I.
He's a nuggety. He's not the tallest, but he's powerful as fuck. Get him to all the dirty work. Defence can absolutely be learned. And he's shown that he's a decent defender. He's got enough ball playing to feed his winger. I think he'd be a good solid centre for him. Timmy, what do you reckon about the signing?
I think it's a great signing, and I struggle to see how anyone could really knock at it. As you said, it brings competition for the fullback spot if Hamiso doesn't work out. It brings quality depth, and I've been critical of the Dolphins in that so many of the blokes they've signed are at the back end of their career or even late 20s where you know what you're going to get from them, but there's not a lot of upside there. They don't have any stars. Now, Tessinu might not be a superstar of the game, but there's a lot of potential there that he has a bright future and he could be a very, very good NRL player down the track. So I like the promise in him. I like it for the depth. I struggle to see where a lot of points are going to come from this team. Tessinu has points in him. I think it's great.
I'll put it this way. I feel like less talented players have had good, solid, long NRL careers than Tessinu. So to tell me that he can't have a good, solid career is... I think it's too early to say that.
Yeah, and I think as Tim was talking, he sort of made me reflect on what I was thinking. Like, you're always looking at these Dolphin signings going, is this the needle mover?
Yeah.
And every time they're not. I think that with this Tessinu one, I was potentially a little bit negative on it, you might say.
But he wouldn't be on Bitcoin.
No, 100%. Yeah, and that's the exact point. Yeah, so I just don't know what's going to happen with
the Dolphins. Oh, it's going to be interesting. And it's one thing to come out of the blocks. It's a new club. Everyone's excited the first 5-6 rounds. But like a whole year, are they going to be able to...
Mate, I can't believe they've given them the Chooks round one.
So, like...
It's fucking rough.
like,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
like, give them something that where they
Give
can...
an easy beat. Broncos, anyone.
So I think this is a great signing. And I think that, just be patient with some of our younger players, guys. He's 21 years old. And I'm not saying that he will go on to be a fucking superstar. I think he's got a lot to offer, though. I think he's got a lot to offer. Hopefully it turns out all right. Then we've got the Masila signing to the Dragons. Murdoch Masila. I think they would have got him on a quite a cheap deal. The Dragons, again, recruitment, Murdoch's an older player. I do think he rounds out their forward pack quite well, but we've discussed in regards to that extra bigger body, especially with George Burgess, retiring. So they needed a big body. Murdoch Masila is a big body. But again, it doesn't really address the concern of the explosiveness around their fullback that I think we were discussing a few weeks ago. So they got him for minimum, a good, depth buy in the sense that he'll probably be in their starting 17, but a good depth in the forward pack. But still, it just shows a tendency to be leaning towards these older players that Hook he seems to like, I guess.
I mean, if your name isn't Jack Bird or Jack DeBellin, you're the same footballer in this pack. Like, it's all just cookie cutter, the same. There's just no... Like, he's a slightly different body shape, and I think if you would have got this guy 2 or 3 years ago and he was a bit more explosive, I would have really liked it. But and to be honest with you, pre-season last year, I was really excited about Murdoch Masila. He didn't quite live up to that, but he did have a couple of injuries.
He had moments as well this year.
But he did have injuries throughout the year that I'm hoping derailed him. But as you said, good depth signing, but I don't think it's anything more than that. Specifically speaking about Murdoch Masila, I think it's a good signing. But like the overarching recruitment of Hook is just, he seems to just be going the older, tough. It's boring.
But maybe that's what he's going for. We're just boring footy and we win. I don't know. Timmy, what do you reckon?
Yeah, nothing too much to add to what you boys have already said. It's another ageing forward into the pack. Very solid depth signing. Might do some decent things, but this is also a bloke who, he struggled at times to make the Warriors team last year that finished second last on the ladder. You mentioned Guru. He did have his injuries, so maybe there were some excuses. Hopefully he can fire like we saw him do over in the Super League a couple of years ago, but not too much to add there.
Yeah, Dragons going to be really interesting. I feel like they're one of those teams that could prove us all wrong because they've got a guy like Benny Hunt playing for them. And even, like, what's bizarre about the Dragon situation is, like, halfway through last year, they were fighting for the 8. And we were all sitting here going, far out, this is like... And they were also touted, I think, at the start of last year, because didn't they go out in their preseason and get absolutely towed, and everyone said, wooden spoon. And so, like, I'm in this real... If I was just to look at it without looking at last year and seeing how they kind of...
So I think that was the year before.
The year before.
South pumped him in the Charity Shield.
Okay.
Spoon. 2020. Yeah.
So was this year where we said they might be Smokies?
Yeah, this year was when you guys were like for the Canberra or Dragons sneaking into the 8.
Then the year before that was that Barbecue Gate?
That was Barbecue Gate the year before that.
When they were in the 8, like they were fighting for 8 then too.
Yeah.
I think they were in the 8.
So it's like, so what I'm trying to say is like, there is evidence that they can outperform what the excitement is around their squad, especially after what Ben Hunt did last year. But I don't know, for some reason, when I look at the recruitment and there's just something missing here. There's something missing. I don't know what's going on.
I just don't know. And I know we've said it before. They finished 10th last year, which I thought was a great knock. But like Ben Hunt had the best possible season he could possibly have. Like you look at the teams below them: Manly, Canterbury, Titans, Newcastle, Warriors, Tigers. They've all improved a fucking stack. And I don't think the Dragons have changed at all.
Well, here's a good question: who is more likely to make the 8, Bulldogs or Dragons?
Bulldogs.
Bulldogs by a mile.
Wow.
Who do you reckon?
But what I'm saying, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right, yeah.
They're the ones with evidence of the last 2 years of fighting for the 8. And yet we roll into this season and we're, confidently, I'm not as confident as you boys because of Ben Hunt.
You know what's funny? This time last year, me and my mate actually had a bet. We bet a case of beers on who was going to make the 8, who could finish higher, Bulldogs or Dragons. That was for last season.
Yep.
I said Dragons. My mate said Bulldogs. I ended up winning. And now I'm 100% totally team Bulldogs. It's crazy what happens in a year.
That off season. And also like the recruitment push. Like that's, again, you look at teams that were doing worse that managed to just smash it in the market. And then you look at the Dragons recruitment and it was like, I don't think there's much that really happened. And look, I understand Dragons fan, the point of you've got some incredible young talent coming through, for sure. But again, as we've discussed, that young talent was unhappy 6 months ago. Now, it may be a similar to when you look at the Broncos in a positive situation where they've cleaned it all up and it's all in the past now and they've moved forward. What's ironic is that even though I consider the Broncos roster substantially better, and maybe that's me being biased, they're almost relatively in a similar situation. A lot of whispers about players not getting on with coaches and this, that, and the next thing. Broncos aren't whispers. They're literally coming out and saying it. But you know what I mean? They're almost in a similar situation in regards to this young guns and struggling with the coach. That both of them, Anthony Griffin and Kevin Walters, obviously they're old school because they're from a different generation. Wow. Yeah, we'll wait till the preview as a prediction of where we think they'll end up.
Like, isn't it crazy? Like, you think about the Dragons and their season, think about South Sydney and their season. The Bunnies won 2 more games than the Dragons.
I know. It's bizarre. That's what makes it so weird to talk about. I sound like the evidence doesn't back up the way I'm feeling about the Dragons. The evidence would suggest that they can fight for the 8 this year. But the vibe I get, the feeling, it just doesn't... I'm not excited yet. So, happy to be wrong. But
like when you consider that Dragons finished 10th, they won 12 games. Tigers finished last, they won 4 games. The Storm, they finished 5th. They won 15 games. So they only won 3 more games than the Dragons. And they're almost top 4.
That's fucking wild, bro.
Like the gap between them and last compared to the gap between them and 5th. Yeah.
I think the only way... This is possibly a bit harsh, but I don't know, I've been a bit critical of the Dragons, but the only way they improve on last season was 12 wins, 12 losses, which is like, it's a pretty solid year.
Well, they would have made the finals 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only way I see them improving is if Tyrell Sloan or Talatau Amon or Jaden Sullivan, I suppose, any of those, whoever's the 1 or the 6, can begin to hit their potential and have a breakout year as a real budding young star of the game. And they're all very talented, so it could happen. But I think one of them 3 needs to really hit their straps this year for the Dragons to be any chance of improving on that ladder position.
Even though you say the evidence is there, I think as well the reason we feel like they'll go down is because every single team around them has improved their squad. And they're pretty much the only team that hasn't really improved their squad in terms of signings in the bottom 8.
And also, one of those younger players is dealing with some off-field drama at the moment as well. Whether whoever's right or wrong, I don't know. We'll wait for the courts to decide that kind of stuff. But it is a distraction for a key player in their side.
And I've heard that take a few times about Sloan, and I agree. But if we get to round 1 and Mbai's at fullback, I won't be shocked.
I won't be either, bro. I will not be either.
Like, if Sloan's not in the team, it won't surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah. I know Dragons fans hate to hear this stuff, but we'd be lying if we didn't Like, what are we supposed to do? Lie? Oh, no, they're going to be good, rah,
You
rah.
feel bad, don't
Yeah.
you? But it's like, well,
It's just the way we see it. And anyone that's listened to this podcast for any amount of times, we are more than happy to say we got it wrong. Like, so when the time comes and you get all those victories and you're in the 8, it'll be even sweeter to leave the comment down the section in the comment section and say, hey, you were wrong about the Dragons. They're killing it. And we'll
especially
say,
if
yep.
it was a guru take.
Especially if it was a guru take.
Make sure you let him know about it. DMs, anything,
anything
any
you can.
avenue you've got to let him know.
Anyway, brought to you, as always, by Bloke Beer. Get down to your local, grab a case of Bloke Beer. We are currently on special in every celebrations in Queensland. If it's not there, it's either sold out or they can just order it in. We are available to every celebrations in New South Wales and Queensland. Get in your local, grab a case of Bloke Beer. Really easy drinking beer, beautiful beer. Give her a try. Supports the platform. Plus, it's a beer from your generation. It's a beer that started when we were coming through rather than 50, 60 years ago. Anything else going on, boys?
We've got Beers and Break-Evens returning on the 18th, so 2 Wednesdays away.
2 Wednesdays away. How's your super coach in that going?
Supercoach, yeah, Big Bash, going well. The mighty Cooma Stallions, we started well. We're sitting 10th overall a couple of rounds ago. I think about 60-odd thousand in it. We've dropped back to 70th after last round. So tracking downwards, but, mate, in the hunt for the end of the season. And then all the SC Playbook footy content along with the Guru will be firing up in the next week or so. So excited to get back into
Is the
that.
website for cricket as well?
Website's cricket too, mate. Yeah,
Yep.
so all the cricket covering that as well, and about to transition back into NRL and a bit of AFL as well. Not that there's any mind nous behind that one, but excited for the new season.
Sweet. That is us done and dusted. We will see you next week, and as usual, I'll go and fuck myself.